Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the South Miami City Commission. Today is Tuesday, June 17th. The time is approximately 7 p.m. Please, if you can, silence or turn off your cell phones. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes. Mayor Fernandez,
Present.
Vice Mayor Corey,
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Here.
Commissioner Bonish,
Here.
Commissioner Kaye.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we'd like to begin by offering our condolences to the family of Paul Young. Former Vice Mayor Young was a stalwart pillar of this community who served the city and our community with distinction, both as a member of this board and on many of our community boards, including most recently as a participant in the Marshall Williamson Scholarship Fund Board. We pray for his eternal repose and want to express our deepest sympathies to his family. With that, I also want to keep in mind this evening in our thoughts as we take a stand in a moment for a moment of silence and a prayer, the victims of the political violence in Minnesota, Melissa and John Hortzman, who were foolishly killed or inexplicably killed, and the Hoffmans, John and Yvette Hoffman, who were wounded and are luckily making a recovery from their injuries. If we could stand for a brief moment of silence, and I'd ask you to keep all of those individuals in your thoughts. Commissioner Rodriguez, would you listen to the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe we have a presentation this evening.
Yes. Via Metro Connect Program Update by Juliana Jaquez.
Great. Mr. Manager, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. Mayor, as we know, we had transitioned our program with to via Metro Connect, and we're sort of at the outset of our first quarter, and we thought it was important to kind of share some thoughts and ideas and comments and just provide a little bit on performance, just so you understand how the program has transitioned. So that's what the purpose of this presentation is, and certainly to get any input or answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. Please come forward.
Hello, good night, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, residents of South Miami. As Chip was mentioning, the objective of today is to share a bit of the performance of the VIA service Metro Connect South Miami we've had in the last kind of 3 months since launch. I don't know if there's something that's going to be shared on the screen. Just.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, I guess the PowerPoint was not transitioned over to Mr.
Okay, so let's give it
Mr.
5 minutes, and then we'll
All right.
recognize after the next item.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience. And I'd like to recognize the presence of my lovely daughter, Susanna Fernandez, who's sitting in the back, observing tonight's proceedings. There you go. Welcome, Susu.
Mayor, I think she should come up and comment on.
She should feel free to comment on any
Yeah.
any item, including the poor performance by her father.
Or
here,
heckle.
and
Heckling would be fun.
Heckling would be welcome in this case. Okay, colleagues, why don't we? Are there any concerns regarding any of the CA items? No. Do we have any items that we want to defer?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Vice Mayor recognized.
I'd like to defer item 4 to the next meeting in July.
Okay. Well, let me just call the items, and we'll say anything else we want to defer or not take up or discuss, consent or otherwise. Okay, so can I get a motion to defer item 4 on the agenda, please? I'll take yours as a motion,
Yes.
Mr. Vice Mayor. Second by Commissioner Gaia. Without objection, show the item deferred to the first meeting in July. Do we want to take up the CA items while we're have them read? Okay, Madam Clerk, if you can read CA 1, 2, and 3, please.
I'm sorry, which one?
Why don't we start with the board, why don't we start with the board items, if you can read those into the record, and then we'll take up the CA items and hopefully dispense with those quickly.
Okay, but the second one needs to be voted on because he's termed out, so.
That's fine, let's go ahead and read it, N1, and we'll
N1.
read N2 and take whatever actions required.
Okay, N1, Andy Corge has been reappointed by Commissioner Bonich to the Town Center Advisory Board as business owner as per City Charter, Article 2, Section 8A, for a 2-year term ending January 17, 2027. N2, Gary Costales has been reappointed by Commissioner Bonich to the Historic Preservation Board as per Charter, Article 2, Section 8A, for a 2-year term ending June 17, 2027. It needs a commission vote because to extend the term limits.
Okay,
And then N3, Angel Lopez has been appointed by Commissioner Bonich to the Design Review Board as per City Charter, Article 2, Section 8A, for a 2-year term ending June 17, 2027.
okay, let's show N1 and N3 is accepted, and can we get a motion on N2, please?
I'll move that, please.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Bonich and a second by Vice Mayor Corey. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll on N2, please.
Yes, Commissioner Bonich,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Corey,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes,
Item passes 5-0.
great, thank you. So we can allow for public remarks on comments that are published on the agenda. Why don't we take up the city manager's report? Are we ready?
We're ready.
Oh, we are. Okay, great. So let's go back to presentations. And again, our representative from VIA is recognized. Ziquez, good evening.
All right. Okay, so the idea is that we cover a bit the SOMI Metro Connect microtransit program that was launched in late February. And I'll move this along. The idea of the program was to attract a flow of riders into downtown South Miami. We set up the service profile running on late weekdays and late week hours, so Thursday to Saturday up to 11 p.m., and then Sunday from noon to 8:30, with a designated amount of hours per week across 3 vehicles. The objective was to cover the entire city of South Miami, and eventually just parameters as needed and as we learn. We worked together with the city of South Miami to work on rider marketing, leveraging most of communication through the Metro Connect app and so our base of riders, reaching out to former freebie riders. Okay. We're communicating on PR instances to build awareness, conducting community engagement for senior training centers, and most recently, we've been engaging on a business outreach campaign that basically puts some thematics around food, health, to attract riders into the downtown Miami South Zone. The service has been growing consistently since launch. We've already completed 2,700 rides since the program started in late February. What you're going to see in this chart not only is the number of rides increasing, but also the productivity. Productivity means the number of rides that are being done on average per a vehicle, and from the moment that the driver logs in and receives the first ride assignment. So you can see that we started obviously at 2, and we're now trending at 3.7 on a productivity increase. This is very typical. It's a good metric for the service. We expect it to continue to get better as we evolve and become better at predicting ridership and matching supply versus the demand. So I was mentioning, we in May have reached 1,386 rides. As a comparison, the previous program was doing around 1,000 rides per month. So this has seen an important increase there. We still see that there's potential to continue to grow that number. We are internally targeting a number of 1,450 rides on average per month, and a growing productivity to 3.8 rides. The more that these rides increase, the more the productivity increase, the lower the cost per ride becomes. And so we are already seeing how that has trended positively in the last kind of 3 months, and we're expecting it to land at around $15, which is very much in line with the Metro Connect overall service throughout the county. But overall, very good metrics so far, trending in a very positive light. With regards to ETA, so the times that how long it would take for you to get a ride, we have 73% of the trips with ETAs below 25 minutes, and more than 50% of the trips with ETAs below 15 minutes, which was a cutoff that we had from the start. The other thing to highlight is that once you get a proposed pickup time, we're seeing that our variation is under 1 minute between the actual arrival and the proposed time for arrival. So that's a very good metric of on-time performance. And actually, that's on average, but almost 90% of rides have this variation under 5 minutes. We're also doing 41% are shared rides, and this is very much in line with the rise of productivity and the idea of the microtransit program. If we zoom in, so we had seen on the first slide the bigger zone. This is when we're zooming in more specifically to this area here shaded in blue, which we understand is the expanded downtown South Miami district. We're highlighting here that 6 of these zones, 6 of the top destinations and pickups are within that blue zone. So this is part of what we had as goals, right? Increasing traffic into that area. So we're seeing that 6 of the top 10 pickups are actually within that zone, the downtown South Miami area. It's important to highlight that there is an overlap of the South Miami area with the kind of county service. So the South Miami actually does benefit from this broader Metro Connect service from the county. The county runs this from Mondays to Friday, from very early morning to 7 p.m., and does put in 10 other vehicles, right? So some of these rides are going to be exclusively in the South Miami zone. Some of them are going to be in and out of the South Miami zone, and some of them don't touch the South Miami zone. But basically, we wanted to highlight on the left side what you see here is the rides that we have been doing with the South Miami vehicles. So that's the 1,386 numbers, and that's how we've been increasing with the 233 vehicles that we have in service. But you can see that in the same zone, we have other vehicles from the Metro Connect program, and this we service, if you see on the right-hand side bar, the number that is showing there, 2,600, that is how many in total rides are done within the South Miami zone if you add both the South Miami exclusive supply and the Metro Connect supply in the same South Miami zone. So this is just to highlight that apart from the 1,400 rides that we're doing with the South Miami supply zone, you also benefit in almost double the number of rides within the same zone by leveraging the Metro Connect service. Again, if we zoom into that South Miami downtown area, you can see that the service has brought around 2.5 thousand, so 2.5 thousand riders into the Southtown Miami area. 80% of the rides have touched this blue zone, and 35% of them, so around 940 rides per month, have the downtown district as a destination. Most of the top destinations are within this downtown district zone, all right? We know that the mayor had highlighted not only this expanded area, but especially a goal within the more restricted current South Miami downtown area district. And this has been important for us as we've set out the service. It's been 3 months. I think the plan is to keep on working here with the city to continue to bring traffic into that specific area, so help support restaurants and businesses to bring in more traffic here. So we've been discussing what else can we continue to do to raise awareness of the Metro Connect service as a possibility for riders to come in and make use and bring more awareness to the service. All right. Just wanted to highlight, lastly, that the current supply is tries to match the requests and the demand that we have for the zone. So we have a very strong coverage. Around 84% of the requests actually do receive a proposal. That means that, and we don't give proposals that are over 35 minutes. So it means that 84% of people who consider riding are actually going to be able to get a proposal and get a ride. And this just shows that, there's a very strong, there's a peak of service around 3, 4 p.m. So that's when you're less likely to get all of your proposals, but more likely throughout the day, depending on how the time of the day goes, right? But this is something we monitor very closely, and we're always in discussion also with the city in our interest, we always want to match very carefully the supply with the requests and the demands so we can do more rides, lower cost per ride, higher productivity, and get the most out of the resources putting into the program. Having said that, I know there had been an interest or had been discussed when we had first brought up the program. Metro Connect is integrated with Uber, so that is always a possibility and can be leveraged as an option if it's an integration that we want to turn on. The way it would work is we would define some of the parameters. They have to meet some of the Metro Connect parameters, but then that would be configured, and then you would be able to track when you make that request. If the ride meets those parameters, you would be sent to an Uber request, and you'd be able to track then in the Uber app. So that's a possibility if it's something we want to trigger. As I said before, I think we're trending very well in the request and our ability to service the demand, right? All right, I think that's what we had for today. I don't know if there's any questions.
Colleagues, any questions?
Yes.
You're recognized, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
So I've heard good things. The only place that, and the only comment I want to bring up is in the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a couple of the seniors say that they have to go walk to meet the Metro Connect. Is there any way that we can make it so that one location is always pickup, no matter who calls, as long as that address and that location is known where the pickup is going to be, like that they can pick up the seniors at the building rather than making them walk?
Okay, that's a very good question. So the way the service in South Miami is set up as a door-to-door. So the South Miami service is a door-to-door, which means that regardless of seniors or non-seniors, you don't have to walk. The complication comes in because the Metro Connect County service, which is not, and it also serves some of the same areas, depending on if it's serving morning time, you're actually riding a Metro Connect County ride. That one is not a door-to-door, that is a curb-to-curb. What we have been doing, and I've been personally going to the senior center's trainings, is we've been registering the people who were there and changing the profile on their account so that they can, once they do request, they are automatically assigned to as a door-to-door, even if they're part of the Metro Connect. This is something that, as we've engaged in the senior community engagement trainings, we've been doing that. They don't need me to be there for that to be done, they can call a customer center, and then that profile can be changed. So we can also bring awareness of that point, because it is something doable and very feasible that any senior or anybody who has a mobility difficulty can be changed to a door-to-door, no matter, it's guaranteed in the South Miami supply, but it can be changed for also the Metro Connect.
So, yes. And the mayor was also, me and him, I showed him, some of the seniors have it already, and it still won't do.
Yeah,
So just if you can,
All right.
If I can elaborate on that point, Juliana, what we observed one day was in the person's profile,
Yeah?
it was accurate, but if they were not necessarily hailing rides through the app, they were calling. And when they call,
True.
the telephonic operator, or the phone operator, I don't know if I said that, the phone operator, apparently in the profile online, did not recognize that they had selected that
All
they
right.
were handicapped. So
Let me look into that. That should not be the case, because regardless of how you book, you.
how you create the profile, it should link up, you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
For whatever reason, in that case, I think it's
Yeah.
not, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you for
So just
flagging.
keep an eye on that. Yeah,
Yes,
see if you can-
definitely, definitely. In fact, in our weekly calls, we've shared if there's any kind of complaints, we can submit a ticket. This thing goes directly, and we'll look at any of these, whatever complaints we have. So investigation is part of.
Commissioner, when you said a question, you recognize, ma'am.
Thank you. You say that even when you're not there, they can do it. Does the senior center have like instructions on how to do it if you're not there?
Yes, because it's not that they have to do anything, they just have to call the customer center. So when you call the customer center, they can change the profile on
Okay,
the
so they
account.
physically have to call. It's not something that we
No,
can
the-
help them do
When
on
I'm
the
there,
app?
we
We can
can-
help them do it, so if, just for our collective information, if you open up their profile on the app, there's a button you select that basically says that identify yourself as handicapped.
Okay,
Yes,
And so that is what will allow for, on Metro Connect, point-to-point pickup service.
got you.
While our service is standard, on the basic service, it is not. That is the differentiator in terms of being picked up. It's a very easy fix. We were able to confirm on this young woman's profile that in fact she had been properly designated, but for whatever reason, when she called the operator to hail a ride, they made her walk a block or two. So,
thank you
Thank
for
you.
letting
Yeah.
us know. We'll investigate any instances of that.
Commissioner Kaya, you're recognized.
Thanks again for the presentation. I think that you spoke a little bit more about efficiencies, like roughly around 3 or 4 o'clock. What can VIA do a little bit better, specifically in those timeframes? I'll give you a scenario where I've been called twice because they're complaining that they couldn't get a ride. I actually physically went up and picked them up myself, so he would be quiet. Shout out, he knows who he is. But-
We know who he is too, by
Yeah.
the way.
So actually, yeah. But what are the efficiencies that we can move? Looking forward to get a little bit better during peak hours.
Yeah. The more mature the service becomes, the better the algorithm becomes at understanding, predicting ride requests, and prioritizing rides, and assigning. And we work with the operations GM to assign the right supply around that. Obviously, the more supply you have, the higher chances that you're gonna not incur an unmet request. I think one of the key things that we have at VIA is that we can always adjust parameters and we can adjust the service. The way we currently have it, we're trying to cover all the service hours, and we're trying to distribute, and if you see the red lines there, we're trying to distribute the supply of cars around the requests. We could always revisit that, but there will be trade-offs, right? So you're saying, okay, let's shrink some of the hours so we have more hours around this 3 p.m., or let's increase supply. Those are solutions that come in with certain trade-offs, but we do expect, I don't know if you saw the July, we expect to serve more rides and get better as productivity continues to get better. So that also helps improve. The tricky thing that exists is that this is a very popular zone, and the service is in an area that I don't think we need to necessarily put more supply, because when you put more supply, more people jump on board. And so there's always a a level of unmet demand. And we can play
So
with service
Can I
designs.
can I translate that?
Yeah.
Is that the cheaper it is and the more efficient it becomes, the more people want to ride. So it becomes I think what I've
Yes, that's
heard
correct.
in our private conversation, it becomes a self-perpetuating problem. So if you have a completely free service that gets optimized, people want to use it more, it creates more demand, and so there's still, you never really get
You
that.
never really capture 100%.
So- I think just for our collective information, I think the broader policy question of the county is, are they going to begin to charge some sort of a per-ride fee to make the system more viable and begin to also right-size demand so that people don't ride this option all the time because it's just that free and convenient. So it's a conversation we may want to have as we see this develop. I know we're reviewing the data. One of my observations was that it seems that we're providing a better version of our prior service, still serving many of the same customer base. So my conversations with you have been about how do we attract new customers into the system. And again, those may be customers that can afford to pay something for their ride. But with the idea of, again, going back to I think my core reason for wanting to do this was to bring people into our town center. I'm not seeing that level of, inbound ride from non-traditional users. So we probably have to do something on the marketing side here to really kind of grow the service base to a new complement of riders that are just not familiar with it and probably never used it. But in aggregate numbers, I think we're better, but we're delivering more people to places than we were with the prior provider, but we still have this service gap that,
Opportunity.
yeah.
Did you, sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead, sir, you're recognized.
Did we go through the presentation and see what the lead times are or wait times? Or is that something you presented?
Yes, I can go back to the slide if we need to.
She did,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
I think the slide, one of the slides in question showed 50% of the rides under 25-minute
Correct.
headways and the other 50% above a 25 to 35-minute headway.
Yes, correct.
So again, in terms of getting premium riders, Commissioner Gaia, that's not an optimal headway number, right? So,
I think what is a good measure, though, is the variation. So when you're given a time, at least you know how to manage that time, and the pickup tends to be very close to the proposed time.
These numbers are not necessarily, 50% is less than 15 minutes, and that was one of our big things that we're keeping track as a KPI, is that we wanted it to be roughly under 15 minutes across the board. But we're seeing 50% of the trips below 15 minutes, but 50% closer up all the way between 20 to 35 minutes. So it's just something we got to keep an eye on, because that's not a service that we want to provide to our residents, is wait 40 minutes. I know it's a free service right now, but it's something that we should try to strive to be a little bit better with.
yeah, I think again, if we want to bring on people who are, I call choice riders or premium riders, obviously this headway is not going to be attractive to them. But I think what is, at least for folks who are transit dependent, I think the important thing is the service is predictable enough they can plan around the headway. So if they make a reservation, they can count on it arriving when they say it's going to arrive. So that is the positive information from this database. I think the other information I've asked Juliana for as well is understanding we're doing very well. 50% of the rides are at our KPI, but I'm wondering at what point of the day are those rides distributed? So are we seeing longer headways at different points in time? That may speak to when we want to concentrate services
Right.
to meet that demand and reduce services and change our service window essentially. So further comments or questions?
So when,
Sure.
to the mayor, so when you say premium service, it would be like something that, like, they would opt to pay for, but it wouldn't be the standard service. So there'd be a standard and then a premium where they pay to get it faster?
No, I think, look, if we add $1 or $2 to the service, it's not going to allow you to add additional fleet, right? Because it's, I think at the end of the day, running quick numbers, it's about $80,000 per vehicle, given the amount of hours that we are asking them to be in operation. So if we're doing 1,500 rides a month, tag $1 or $2 on it, it's not going to generate a whole lot of income to offset that cost. But
And it's also very uncommon that the cost of any service is usually funded by fares.
Correct.
Not-
So,
And then they have the option for the Uber option that you were presenting.
that
So-
requires more money.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think really what we're talking about is understanding when the distribution of trips are happening and concentrating resources at particular inflection points if we want to reduce these headways substantially. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
absolutely correct. So we could revisit the size of the zone, we could revisit service hours so that we could shift more supply to certain times. But again, I want to highlight, it's pretty much impossible to get 100% payment because the better you do, more people jump on board, right? So 84% up to 90% is a very consistent metric of a good service that we see on the parameters we have. Again, I think Mr. Mayor might have some other ideas, and we're going to be working alongside to see what else could we do and how we can bring more awareness, bring a different profile, maybe more willingness to pay. That also reduces cancellations and no-shows, which also tends to improve service.
Further questions? Commissioner Gaia?
No, just 84% of the people don't get a ride.
No, it's the
Yeah.
opposite.
I'm sorry,
80% do, yeah.
sorry.
16%,
my apologies.
yeah.
The other way around, sorry. 16% of the people don't get rides. I'm trying to see determine that if that's something that, how important that is. You know, if people are depending on this particular service to get home from point A to point B, and 16% of the people don't get their ride, or 40% of the people have to wait over 20 minutes. Is that something that we could do better with? Is that something that we want to look at? Because if we're marketing this for a way of having our residents and our constituents use this on a daily basis, the system's not going to work. If we're going to market it, which what was our intention, was to start shipping more people back into our hometown so our businesses and the creativity in our area would be much better and better served, then that's something we might need to look back into and figure out what are the parameters that we want to set there. So just food for thought.
Yeah, no, I think
Maybe
there
the process.
are a lot of questions that we need to answer, and you know, the county's offering a base service. It may change with this coming fiscal year. There's conversations about changing the hours of service, possibly adding a fare. We have to monitor that to see, because obviously it's built on the back of that service. But I think, you know, we probably the answer is, I've been thinking about this for quite a while today, as been in preparation for this meeting. So we're probably going to have to figure out where we can want to concentrate our dollars in terms of providing service. We're not going to be the backbone service provider for people to get to last mile to and from the station. That should already be covered by the county. Where we want to play in that space, how we want to deploy these resources a bit more strategically to reduce these headways and possibly make it attractive to non-traditional riders is a conversation we probably need to continue to have. So,
Thank you.
but I think you're right on, sir. Okay, further questions and comments? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, we will move on to the adoption of the minutes. Can I get a motion for the adoption of the minutes of June 3rd, 2025?
I'll move that.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Bonich and a second by Commissioner Rodriguez. Any questions, comments? Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, Commissioner Kaye?
I wasn't here. So
You could read it. Did you read them?
No.
Okay. But I guess, can he abstain?
You need me to vote on it?
Yes, you can vote for it even though
I was
you
told.
weren't there, but
You
it's up
just-
to
Or
you.
you can just vote no if you want to feel uncomfortable.
No.
Okay, there you go. That's fine.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Never had that problem.
Commissioner Bonich?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Corey?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes,
Minutes past 4-1.
thank you. Mr. Manager, can we get your report, please?
Yes, sir. Our deputy will be providing.
Madam Deputy, good evening.
A reminder that City Hall will be closed on Thursday, June 19th, in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. The Black Cultural Affairs Association is going to be hosting their Juneteenth celebration at our community center on Saturday, the 21st, and that's going to be from 11 to 1. We also have one of the city's biggest events, July 4th. That's at Palmer Park. It's very family-friendly. It's going to be a good time. That is from 5 to 9 with fireworks at 9 p.m. I'm happy to report that at the state level, currently, we have secured $900,000 for the culvert replacement, $900 for septic to sewer conversion, and $350 for our police CAD. So obviously, that's subject to the governor's review and potential veto, but we should have answers in early July for that. And finally, our team has been working on Taste of SoMe, which I mentioned during the last commission meeting, is our version of Miami Spice, but better because it includes our retail as well. We have over 31 participating businesses right now. The savings are going to take place in the month of July. We're going to show you just a quick sneak preview of one of our marketing materials that will be used.
Now, for the first time ever, South Miami brings you Taste of SoMe flavor. Come check out our local restaurants at a bargain. Breakfast from $15 to $20. Brunch $20 to $40. Lunch $20 to $35. And yes, of course, dinner from $45 to $65 only through the month of July. Come check it out.
So that's just a short clip. We'll have lots of marketing material it's a party. With all of the participating businesses, when you log onto our website, there'll be an automatic pop-up that comes up where you can see everybody's menu and everything that they're offering. So we're excited about that. That's the end of the manager's report.
Questions of the deputy manager?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, sir, you're recognized.
So what are we doing from the SoMe Taste, like from a marketing perspective? Are we blasting this through socials across the board, or is this something that can we get it catchy to make sure we can get more people across all Miami-Dade?
Yep, we're blasting it everywhere. So we are going to put marketing dollars behind it. There's going to be ads. It's going out in our newsletter, all of our social media channels. It's going out everywhere. We're going to
Do we have some benchmarks or some like understanding of what we're trying to see out of this thing? You don't have to answer this. I mean, I'm sure internally that you guys have some good feedback on.
I think his
what's
question is
positive
how
or
we
negative
going to
on-
measure success behind this initiative?
We have
Thank you.
all of the businesses are going to have a QR code for whoever participates to respond. We already have these loyalty cards, so they have stamps on them. You participate, you come to a SoMe business 5 times during the month of July that's participating, you get a sticker, you get entered into a raffle to win a prize. So a lot of the businesses are participating in that. So I think we'll have good feedback as to how good participation was and, you know, how far our marketing efforts went.
Questions? Madam Manager, who's been helping you put this together?
We have our team in Community Affairs and Marketing. So we have Brandon, Sam, we have Evelyn, we have Chamber South, we have John Edward Smith on the board. So a nice group of people. We have Michael Altman, who brought the idea from Kitchen 57. It's been a good team community effort to get it going.
Well, thank you to all of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Madam City Attorney, you're recognized for your report.
Yes, good evening, everyone. 2 items tonight. We have an update on the state litigation, the 287 agreement. An amended complaint was filed last Friday, June 13th. I believe it was circulated to all of you earlier this week. The city filed its amended complaint, and now we expect the state to file an amended motion to dismiss. They have 10 days to file their new response. At that point, a hearing will likely be set to address the motion to dismiss. That's the first item. Any questions on that?
You may, you're recognized, yes.
I would just like to make clear that not all of us are in agreement with this. I've been actually asked now a couple of times, if you can believe that, somebody actually asking me if I support that. So I just want to make it clear again, this is not something I support. I did not support this. I did not support taking away the right for the city manager to make decisions for us. I don't support any of this, and I think this is a really bad idea, especially when you look at the dollar amount attached to it.
Okay, further comments, questions? Madam City Attorney, in terms of the disposition of the case, I know we had a conference call or status call with opposing counsel, I believe, recently on the case. And so from that call, what did we learn, or were there any agreements made?
We learned that they will file an amended motion to dismiss, most likely in response to our amended complaint.
Okay,
And there'll be a hearing on that. There's also a possibility of a stipulated summary judgment where there's no facts at issue and we move to a hearing on summary
Okay.
judgment.
so we would avoid a protracted discovery
That would avoid
process?
protracted
Okay.
discovery, yes.
So we can just get to the merits
Get to the
and
merits.
allow the judge to rule on the briefs without a further hearing?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And you're on the record as being not in support. I want to go on the record here publicly and say that I'm actually going to raise money to defer the costs of the litigation on behalf of the city. I'm still trying to figure out a vehicle so that the donations can be made and hopefully reduce the amount of our financial exposure by pursuing this cause of action. So I just want to put that on the record as well. With that, yeah. Yes. No, I just, like,
I think that when we do something like that, we politicize our position. And I think your intention is a great one. Considering that we have 900, 900, and 350 that will likely meet a veto pen hard. I applaud your efforts. I just think that we're allowing or we're courting people that have personal interest into something that should not have personal interest. You know, am
No,
I
I
doing a bad
understand.
job of explaining?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and I understand the possibility for the perception of a conflict, which is why we have not allied ourselves with any third-party group in the prosecution of this litigation, while we try to just keep it to us and any other municipality who'd like to join us, if they're so inclined, because I do not want there to be any sort of confusion as to what we're trying to accomplish here. So I was encouraged to hear from our other city attorney, Mr. Rescio, that in fact the state council was inclined to kind of move on an expedited basis because it would also minimize our respective costs. But again, to the extent that this board is concerned about the expenditure, ultimately it'll be our choice whether we want to accept those funds or not, but I'm certainly going to make an effort to personally defray those costs on behalf of the city. So I said that in a private session. Hopefully I'm not violating the confines of that conference, but I did want to put that on the record as well. Okay. You said there were two items. That was the first?
Yes, the second item is the Mandelstam litigation, that matter. You may recall you had directed us to seek a settlement agreement with Mandelstam where they would provide us with a fire access easement along the southern portion of their property in exchange for the commission considering a modification to their planned unit development. That was rejected by Mandelstam. They are not in agreement with granting the city the fire access easement along that perimeter of their property.
Yes, let me elaborate on that since I've been kind of trying to lead those discussions on our behalf with Mr. Mandelstam. From the outset of the conversations that I had with him, I communicated to him that to reach any sort of an understanding, I needed to have the concurrence of this board, which you all granted when we presented the outline of the agreement last meeting or the meeting prior. I can't remember what it was. At no time was it represented to me that he needed the concurrence of any third party. To my knowledge, the property was owned by himself and his spouse through a holding company that they controlled. And I think it was, today's Tuesday, so probably last Thursday, I had called to follow up on the status of their review of the documents we transmitted, including the final description of the easement, so they have a full understanding of what portion of their property would be burdened by the benefit that we were getting. And I was advised at that time by Mr. Mandelstam that the board of the school had voted to reject the terms of the settlement out of concerns for impacts to the property value and possible operation of the school. And just for the benefit of the board and anyone who may be listening, what had been indicated to me was that the footprint of the parking lot that would be burdened by the easement would be unchanged in any future expansion scenario for the school, and it was a very limited expansion plan that they had. So I did not understand why, first of all, they would have any objection operationally, and secondly, why it was only being communicated to us now that there was any other board that had an interest in the disposition of this matter. So personally, it's very bitter, very disappointing that we find ourselves here, given that we spent 3.5 months plus trying to fashion a solution really on a case that is as frivolous as anyone could bring against the city. Unfortunately, we have not, it didn't end up with the result that we'd hoped. I thought it was a good outcome for us in terms of not impacting a very important park in any sort of negative way with an additional roadway to allow us to build the facility. And I thought it gave them some predictability in their ability to continue to operate the school for an extended period of time under a development agreement. So that's where the discussion ended, unfortunately. Happy to answer any questions you have, and I do have some questions for the city attorney at the appropriate time. Yes, ma'am.
Have we considered just fixing the building that we have? Because we're looking at an over $3 million price tag. We haven't started anything. We've hit numerous roadblocks at this point, and now with this easement issue, I'm not quite sure how that easement would work with where the building is. So it would either be, we have to reimagine where that building's gonna be in the park, or we have to just stop and fix what we have. Because I think we continue to go down this road. Unfortunately, we thought we solved the problem, which would have been great, but since we aren't, and realistically, we can't count on any other outcome, I think, with that party, then we need to reassess on our side.
I agree. So I think your comments are spot on. I think one, whatever we do from a redesign perspective, I think we should call upon the same firm to fix the mistake they made, because frankly, I think we find ourselves in this position because the design firm made a material oversight in not anticipating that an access, fire access would be required for a substantially new and redesigned facility. So I think remodeling the building is an option we can discuss. The other option is relocating the building closer to the existing parking asphalt, which would require us maybe to modify or relocate.
Or move it to the back where that other street is.
I think that puts that activity node close to the neighborhood. I think that would probably, just knowing the sensitivities of the neighbors around there to begin with, I would imagine that would be something that would not be well received by neighbors, given some feedback we've gotten around a much less intense improvement, which was pickleball courts that were adjacent to those same homes. So I don't know that that's an option, but certainly relocating it closer to the main parking apron, which would require us to relocate tennis courts.
I was going to say, then we'd have to switch.
Flip them, right? That's a second option. We can just abandon the project altogether. That's a third. A fourth option, and so I wanted to ask the city attorney about, is there the ability for us to explore eminent domaining the easement, which I don't think would be that expensive, but at least analyzing that as an option to preserve what we've expended on plans to date and, procure what is access that we're probably never going to hopefully need to use given the nature of the easement that we're seeking. So I don't know, Madam City Attorney, is that something we could explore?
Yes, there is an option for the city to pursue what we call a quick take, which is an eminent domain action. That's about a 6-month process, and that requires, the first step is a 5-factor study, which looks at the need, the alternative locations, the cost, safety, and the environmental factors affecting that. Based on that, the city would adopt a resolution. It would authorize the manager and the city attorney to pursue eminent domain, either by voluntary acquisition or through the quick take process. It would require an appraisal of the property. Roughly, you're looking at about 6 months to get that process completed, and that's in the best case scenario to complete it. But it is an option. I just want to let you know.
I think those are the options. I don't know if anybody else had any thoughts they wanted to put on in terms of options we could explore. And I think, when we do the project, your comments at our workshop were exactly spot on. They've been bothering me since you made them because they're 100% right. I would love to have a conversation, Mr. Manager, about just, and Stephen possibly, how we get through a bidding process. If we end up with a cost per square foot on the order of what we're estimating, north of $1,000 for what is a very basic building, what procurement alternatives we have to enter into direct negotiations with parties. Because it seems to me that it's, in fact, the public bidding process may be driving up the cost. And it's just what we're proposed to spend, we're estimating that we have to spend. I think in all of our professional and personal experience is incongruent with what costs are in the marketplace. They're I'd say easily twice as expensive as what we're seeing for comparable buildings, that are being done private party to private party. So I don't think the city attorneys were here for that conversation at the last time, but when we were going through our capital workshop, we did all comment that the cost per square foot of the building was north of $1,100 per square foot. That was the estimate, and I can tell you, we've got clients that are building luxury product that are substantially below that number, half that number. So, again, what direct negotiation options we have to procure those improvements, I think are something at least I'd like to understand our option, whether it's post the procurement and getting back pricing that we think is just incongruent with what we could get privately in the marketplace. What are our procurement options, once we get through these issues of siting the building, in terms of actually procuring the improvements themselves, hopefully at a price that's more reasonable than what we're being told we should estimate.
Because it's a public construction project, we're governed by Florida statute, that's 25520.
20, yeah.
If the work exceeds 300,000, it has to be bid out, unless we meet one of the exemptions in that Florida statute.
Which we will not, from what I understand of the statute.
Unless it's a repair, maintenance, or exempt. I think a new building would not be a repair, maintenance, it would be a new public work. So I'm not familiar with any exceptions that would fit the new construction of that building.
But if we bid the building, let's assume we get 3 bids and they're all north of 1,100 square feet, $1,100 a square foot. And our strong belief is that we could procure, if we were doing it personally, we could procure for substantially less, right? Can we discard a bid and then enter into direct negotiations? I think that's what happens after the competitive bidding. Can we only procure through the competitive bidding? Or do we have to ensure that we do the bidding to make sure that we're getting the most advantageous pricing? And so that's the question really legally that I've never really dealt with, but was at least sparked in my mind as a byproduct of that conversation. Certainly, I think per 25520, we have to procure it, right? But whether we have to actually complete the procurement, if we think the number is unreasonable, short of throwing it out and rebidding, what are our options?
Yeah, we would need to look at that, Mayor and Commission. I know if you don't receive responsive bids, you can cancel the solicitation and then directly negotiate with some of these vendors. But in this instance, we would
Sorry,
need
if
to,
we don't receive,
if you don't receive responsive
okay.
bids,
But they're
you put out an
but they
invitation
are
to-
responsible. We can then direct, it's okay,
Yes.
okay.
So we would need to look at that situation and advise you what other options you may have in that situation that you mentioned, and get back to you. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
Yes, sir, you're recognized.
To the manager, how do we procure these projects? Well, how do we advertise, basically, is what my question is. On what platform?
Yeah, we have a platform that people subscribe to that's national, and if you remind me the name.
On Demand Star?
Yeah, and so a lot of people subscribe to that, and so it's a platform that
Yeah.
it's widely distributed.
Yeah. Do we do like the business review and advertise there? I'm just saying, I think that maybe one of the issues that we're having is that we're having too few bidders. And maybe we need to advertise a little bit more.
We have not bid this out yet. I just want to,
Oh.
the pricing.
No, this is just the order of
Well,
magnitude estimate, I believe,
okay.
correct? So, but it is, we've all remarked that it is very high, so we're concerned about that.
Yeah.
May-
Yes, sir, you're recognized.
Maybe we can just give some recommendations back, or have the team, Parks and Public Works and the manager's office to figure out different solutions on how to go about doing this. I think that there was a solution that we could have looked into before on getting some fire hydrant through the process, because remember, we've already spent money on the design already, so we were pretty close to getting it permitted. Maybe we can kind of revisit that as well, and just figure out what the different options are.
Yeah, I'd certainly be happy to. We've been talking about some different ideas. Obviously, that some are old ideas, but then we may have to go to. And the specific issue is that as the mayor mentioned, was not identified when the building was sited, which is that the fire suppression vehicle has to reach within 50 feet of the building. And so that's the issue that caused this sort of revisit, and that's hence the mayor's comment about, well, maybe we put it towards the front where the tennis court is and then build the tennis court in the back. That's one option. But obviously that triggers adjustments to your design and I don't know, what kind of time. So we need to evaluate what that does to a timeline from a permitting standpoint. So yeah, I'd be happy to look at some options and put something together for you.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions or comments of the city attorney? Seeing none, we'll move on then. Let's open up the floor for public remarks. If you've not yet signed up, please do so with John or at the back. I've got first on the list, Jaziel Jimenez. Please come forward. Actually, we've got your item, I think, later on the agenda, so we'll wait till then. Mr. Lopez, Jason Lopez, you're next.
Hello all, Jason Lopez, 7730 Southwest 65th Place. I'm just here as a longtime resident of the city of South Miami, hoping to convince you guys to start making more of an investment in parks and green space in the city of South Miami. We are watching development take our space faster than we are acquiring it, and it is a finite resource that once it's gone, we cannot get back. I know that accounting is complicated, but I know that accounting can be figured out after the fact in a lot of cases, but we cannot make more space. So as a resident who pays taxes, I would rather trade small tax breaks for individuals for better services, and I would like those services to include parks and green space and everything associated with them. I know that the best cities in our country and around the world have great parks and green space, and you can visit them and you can either engage in them or disappear from your life or whatever it is you're looking to do. And I know that with the thousands of new residents that are planned and these new annexations that you're considering and whatnot, we have a lot of new residents in South Miami coming our way, and we need more parks and green space. So as a taxpayer, I would encourage you to figure out a way to invest in parks and green space. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Madam Mayor, you're next on the list.
My name is Sally Phillips, and I live at 7310 Southwest 64th Court in South Miami. And I was going to speak to item number 4, which has been postponed now. I'm not sure why. But I want to say that last time the city tried to annex something, it was shot down by one of the Miami-Dade commissioners. And I'm not sure, but I think that even after her disapproval of those parts of it that she did not like, after that was fixed, her staff did not work with our city manager. I think that the part that the annexation that was shot down was probably worth more than the annexation that was proposed or was going to be discussed today. And I'd want to be sure that you know that it takes an awful lot of work to set up and get all of the gizmo, everything that has to be done to get something annexed. The annexation of the southeast part of near where that was going to happen for South Miami was brought forward initially by the residents there, and that most of that enough of the residents approved of it for it to go forward. I'm not sure where this particular proposal is coming from and if it's coming from the residents. So I want you to be careful about putting an awful lot of time and energy into putting together something that may not work. And I also want to know why you don't look back at that southeast chunk that that was proposed to be annexed, that got shot down. It got shot down initially because it was including too much of Dade land in it. But once Dade land was carved out, the commissioner's staff never did respond to us. And there's been a big changeover in staff and commission since then, but I wonder why you haven't gone back and looked at that, which was something that those residents wanted. why you haven't revitalized that and worked on that. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just for your information and the public's, that application was brought back forward. Unfortunately, when it was revisited, the preliminary ballots to hit the minimum threshold, we didn't meet the threshold. The residents of that area unfortunately did not want to proceed with annexation. So I believe it died, Mr. Manager, when was it, last December, last November?
Roughly.
Roughly last November, if I recall. We spent about 5 months attempting to do outreach with that neighborhood. Unfortunately, they voted the option down. So just wanted to share that for the record. Thank you. Ms. Fisher, you're recognized. Good evening.
Good evening to all of you.
Good evening to you.
And thank you all for being here and your service. And the same thing with all of my fellow residents and our wonderful staff and our wonderful police department. I'm very grateful to everyone for doing their great job. Anyway, now to get down to my remarks. I want to give a big thanks to our mayor. You're famous now, Mayor.
Yeah.
I've been a many years long watcher, fan of that show, This Week in South Florida. It's a great informational show. Yeah, you're a star now.
Apparently.
So you gave a great, clear explanation of the issue, and I'm very proud of you and I'm very proud of our city because of you. Because I was aware that this is the only municipality, and Glenna Milberg brought that out, in the whole state of Florida that's asking for some clarification dealing with a very important legal issue. And as a resident, I don't want our police department to be forced to do anything outside of the parameters of their legal obligation to the city and normal functions of law enforcement. So I know that your question is dealing with all of that, and thank you so much for what you're doing. I hope to see you on that show again.
Hopefully not anytime soon.
I
so.
hope she invites you again, often and soon.
It's been a long time, so.
Okay. Then I'll go on to my next issue, which is preemption. I've spoken to maybe all of you about preemption, or maybe most of you about preemption. It's a big concern of mine. As an old timer, I go back to the days when there wasn't any, I was certainly not aware of any preemption. We actually had something called municipal sovereignty, and I valued it, and I think most of our citizens valued it. And I think that the city needs to start a movement to educate the voters about preemption and how it is a dictatorial policy that has robbed us of this self-determination as a city. What we need to do is start voting for people in the state legislature and in the governor's office who will support municipal sovereignty. And maybe we can start with some alliance with the League of Cities. I do not know if South Miami is still actively involved. League of Cities, that would be a great alliance. And whenever there's a movement, it has to start somewhere. So it might be a good starting point. And it might be a good starting point to start talking about this a lot.
I think Commissioner Bonito will take that effort head on. We're going to volunteer her to lead us in the preemption fight.
I see a no or a yes?
No, you see a no. No.
Well, that's a shame, and I think that there are things that are doable. Sometimes we don't think they're doable, but if we get ourselves the courage and the will to do it, that we're capable of an awful lot more than we may think we are. So,
And on the mango lot? I think you had one other item.
On the mango lot.
Okay.
On the mango lot, okay?
We'll give you 10 seconds to wrap up, so.
Okay. I want to say that I did a walk with my husband. I forced him to come and see the mango lot. He's never walked the lot.
Let's do this, for green space or for affordable housing? What's your vote?
Oh, my gosh. I am so for retaining that mango lot
so green space.
as
Good.
a green space, and more than that, a historical green space.
We'll see you tomorrow night then, okay?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll be there, and I'll give you a little bit of what I saw and what it means to all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. Good night.
Paige Teasdale. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi. Do I need to say?
If you can say your name and address for the record.
Okay, just want to make sure. Wasn't sure the routine here. Paige Teasdale, 6620 Southwest 77 Terrace. Thank you for having us all here tonight. I've been up here a couple times, and I kind of want to piggyback off of my neighbor Jason about green space. I have lived here in city of South Miami now for over 25 years. Love this neighborhood, love our neighbors. It brings me back to having something rare that when I was growing up, we all just, kids ran out the neighborhood. We were out till got dark and then had to come home. My kids have experienced what I experienced, which is rare, and you don't find that, especially here in Miami anymore. When I would tell my friends that I work here close by at Epiphany, and I would tell them, you know, where I live and what my kids are able to do, they're like, you know all your neighbors and your kids grew up there? I'm like, yeah. They're like, we don't even know our neighbors. I'm like, that's so weird. How do you do that? I know everybody in my neighborhood. My kids know everybody in my neighborhood. We all grew up together. It's sad to see how much this has changed. Hey, I think I understand things have to grow. People are coming into Miami, and we're lucky. Obviously, it's a great place to live, and it's out there. Everybody wants to come here. I get that. And we have a very rare gem. South Miami is an amazing place to live, and we're spoiled, and it's wonderful here. But we are seeing changes going so rapidly, it's sad, I'll be honest with you. Just right across the street from our little local bar here, where Winn-Dixie used to be, you know, you've got this huge building that's going up here that just sticks out like a sore thumb. Now they're getting ready to tear down the little tavern and build another one right there in the corner, you know, across the street from it. Now, obviously, they're going to move the restaurant. I understand that, but it's not going to be the same. So you're going to have another building there, talking about Sunset Place changing. Obviously, we know that's got to change. Then there's other buildings that are going to be coming up around here. The growth is going to be unbelievable, and it's starting to happen so rapidly that our neighborhood is not looking like it used to be. I understand we have to change, and I get that, but the amount of people that are going to be moving here our neighborhood is just, it's sad to see. Again, I fought for trying to keep the lot across the street from my house, green space, when a lady passed away. You all were so close in purchasing it, and I lost that fight. This was years ago, many years ago. And now I know it's taken over. We're going to have the 3 buildings that are going to be moving in there. I understand that, and it's sad to see, but, you know, what's even sadder now is that little tiny lot that's on 80th Street that you guys want to put houses there even. I can't even understand how houses are even going to fit there. That's on my way to work every single day. I take that little corner there. The traffic there is bad enough. I can't believe there's been so many accidents. It's almost happened there on that corner. And now you want to put, I don't even know how many houses or tenants would even fit in that little corner. You've got those beautiful mangroves. It's a small lot, and I don't know how you guys would even fit in housing there. We are losing green space by the minute. There is nothing left here but our backyards, basically. So I am just saying, whatever you guys can start trying to preserve, I understand these people are coming in and they're wanting to build these big buildings, but please try to keep.
Just to keep in the green space.
Yes, try to keep some in our beautiful neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Okay. Do you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to give her a comment. Okay.
Go ahead.
I think that you bring up great comments, and I think that you'll see that this commission has been very green-oriented, putting money aside, getting ready to plant trees throughout the city. Now we have a bond that you guys thankfully approved for us to go have the opportunity to acquire properties like that. 2 years ago, when the property on 77 Terrace was available, we couldn't buy it. Now we could, right? So I think that you'll see this commission really work hard on trying to figure out what's the best way for the community to keep the community as is. And by doing that, sometimes we have to make sure that we do smart development in specific areas so we protect everything else around it. So I think that's what you've seen a lot from this commission, to keep our community safe, to keep it the way that it's been traditionally. My kids play just like your kids in the streets. I love it that they come home at 8, 9 o'clock for supper. Most of our kids are doing that throughout the city. We intend to keep that. We intend to make it more green. We intend to make sure our canopy is better and bigger than ever. Those are our priorities from the commission side, and I think everybody here on my colleagues would agree with that. So I just want to make sure you understand that that is one of our top priorities.
And we appreciate the advocacy,
Yeah, I do.
sincerely.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in public remarks, Madam Clerk?
No.
Got anyone else signed up? I don't have anyone else on my list.
No.
Okay, anyone else online?
No one's
No
on.
one's online, so, James, you're recognized, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I was just instructed to invite everybody to the Juneteenth event this Saturday.
Thank you for the text.
In between 2 and 6 p.m. at the community center. Okay? All right.
Thank you, sir. Always. Okay, with that, we'll close public remarks. Madam Clerk, anyone have any objection to the reading of CAs 1, 2, and 3, which are the consent agenda items? Anyone want to discuss any of those items? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you can read for the record CA 1, 2, and 3.
Yes. Item 1, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, authorizing the city manager to issue a notice of intent to withdraw from the Public Risk Management of Florida Insurance Pool. Item 2, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, relating to the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget, authorizing a budget transfer of $450,000 from the non-departmental general contingency line item to the Public Works Engineering and Construction Division Construction Projects line item. Item 3, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute the State of Florida Division of Emergency Management Statewide Mutual Aid Agreement, SMAA 2023, on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bonich and a second by Commissioner Kaye. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll on a motion for CA 1, 2, and 3 and their adoption.
Yes, Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Bonich,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Corey,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes, ma'am.
Consent agenda passed 5-0.
Thank you. If we can read the, I believe we need a quasi judicial warning on item 6, correct? I'm going to take up, colleagues, items 6, 5, and then 7, 8, and 9, in that order, okay? And we'll close out with the discussion items, okay?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. Agenda item number 6 on this evening's City Commission meeting agenda is an application to delete a condition of a previous resolution that approved a final plat. Because the final plat was approved after a quasi-judicial hearing, tonight's hearing, which considers whether to change the previous resolution, will also be considered in a quasi-judicial hearing. The clerk should read the title of the resolution immediately after this statement. Public hearing will start with a staff presentation, followed by the applicant's remarks and any public comment. The commission may ask any questions either before or after public comment is closed. Following public comment, the commission may deliberate on the item. The quasi-judicial procedures require that this commission consider the evidence presented to it and base its decision on the applicable law and primarily on the evidence presented, whether by the applicant, staff, or members of the public. Because the previous resolution involved a final plat, the criteria to be applied this evening is the subdivision criteria under Section 20-4.2 of the city's Land Development Code, which includes compatibility with the as-built character of the surrounding area and an avoidance of adverse impacts on the surrounding area. The evidence to be considered during this hearing must be substantial, competent evidence. This means testimony or other evidence based on personal observation or relevant expert testimony that a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. It is not a popularity contest. It cannot be based solely on non-expert opinions, no matter how fervent those opinions might be. Madam Clerk, would you kindly read item 6?
Yes, item 6, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, approving or denying an application to amend the conditions of resolution number 022-24-16127, which approved a final plat to permit development of a two-story single-family home on a property located at 6623 Southwest 77 Terrace.
Anyone who wishes to speak on this item should be given an opportunity to speak during the public comment portion of each hearing. If you intend to provide testimony as to the application considered tonight, you will be sworn in before your testimony is taken. Please know if you speak, you may be subject to cross-examination. If you refuse either to be cross-examined or to be sworn, your testimony will be considered in that context and given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request that this city commission direct questions on their behalf to either staff or the applicant. At this time, anyone who wishes to speak should be sworn in.
Is there anyone here on item 6 who'd like to speak on the item? If so, please stand and be sworn in.
All righty. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
City Chair, if
truth?
you hold up for a second. Just in case, why don't we swear you in case there are any questions? That way it's considered testimony for the record. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Again, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do, yes. Madam Clerk, please confirm compliance with the advertising and notice requirements for these hearings.
Yes.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, have you had any ex parte communications with the applicant or any member of the public, either for or against any of the applications to be heard tonight? If so, please state for the record who the communication was with and the nature of the communication.
Anyone have any communication?
All right.
I did before the application was filed, but I'll disclose it nonetheless. I met with the applicant for coffee shortly after he purchased the property, and he asked me about the restriction that we had adopted on a prior that was considered. So,
All right. Mayor, I turn the proceedings over to you to begin the hearing with the recommendations of the planning and zoning staff.
thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Marcus, if you could, thank you. We'll hear staff's presentation, followed by any comments from the applicants and any questions we have. Good evening again.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and members of the Commission. Marcus Lightfoot, City of South Miami Senior Planner. The item before you is a request to amend the final plat application for the original property of 7709 Southwest 67th Avenue. That was the original property. This request is for the easternmost lot. The request is to amend Resolution 022-24-16127, which was adopted by the Commission in March of last year. The condition in question is the easternmost lot of the property shall be limited to 1 story, but be permitted a building coverage of 35% of the lot area and impervious coverage of 50% of the lot area. The applicant is requesting that the condition be removed so that they can build per what's permitted by right in the RS3 zoning district, which is a 2-story home. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions of staff?
Yeah, I do.
Commissioner Rodriguez, you're recognized.
Are the lots already platted?
Yes, the lot is already platted. It was platted into three individual lots.
Okay. That's all.
Further questions? Mr. Lightfoot, I have a question. Has there, when we discussed the restriction, when this replat proposal was brought to us, I think, about a year and a half ago, I think one of the reasons that we imposed the restriction was that the neighbor had a 1-story home and wanted to keep the profile of the home the same. Is my understanding correct that that home has been sold and that a 2-story home has been proposed for development on the adjacent lot?
You are correct. The house immediately to the east of Lot 3
Correct.
was sold and has already been demolished. Their building permit was issued to demolish that property. A temporary construction fence permit has been already issued for the property, and a 2-story home was submitted to the design review board, and even though there was no quorum at the meeting, it went with staff's recommendation, which was approval for that project.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Further questions? Okay. Do we want to hear a presentation from the applicant? Okay. Sir, just briefly, your name and address for the record and If you could just state the nature of your request and the reason for it briefly, we'd appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Jacier Jimenez. I'm the owner of the 3 lots, and we're developing 3 two-story homes. We're not ready. The plans have not been submitted to you guys, but based on the fact that if we do a 1-story home in that lot, we will take more space, more green space, and we want to preserve as much as possible. I think submitting a 2-story home for this lot is going to make sense. Besides also the fact that the 2 houses on the 2 sides of this house are going to be also 2-story homes. I think we're proposing a tropical modern house, which is very earthy, and I think it's going to be a very nice development.
Yes, we'll start with Commissioner Bonich, and we'll go to you, Commissioner Rodriguez, next.
Okay, I'm trying to do a mental picture. So this is your lot. You're saying now the lot that was next to it, that had the issue, is gone, and they're building a 2-story house. There's a 2-story house on this side.
He owns the
I own
the
the
west
2 other
side,
lots.
so he's
I
putting.
own the
Yeah,
next.
so literally it's gonna be 2-story, 2-story, 2-story if this is changed.
Correct.
Behind you will be what?
It's a house that is for sale now, I believe.
Okay, so the back side of this
It's a
is.
1-story.
1-story, 1-story?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
So my question to you is, do you have a plan for the current trees that are on any mitigation or?
Correct. Yeah, we have the plan. We already submitted, and I think it's been approved.
Can you just, what is it that the plan is?
Can you elaborate on
Yeah.
trees that are being preserved versus removed in
Are
a
you
1-story?
transferring them or giving them?
In a 1-story
Already,
versus
yeah.
2-story context?
So correct, yeah, we're preserving a lot of trees, but all the invasive species are getting removed, and we have some mitigation trees that are going in.
Okay. So the oaks, you're trying to maintain as many
All
of
the
those?
oaks are gonna stay.
All the oaks are gonna
Yeah,
stay?
all the oaks are staying.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Yes, ma'am, wait, questions or comments? Okay, so let's wait until we close the presentation. So, thank you, sir. Mr. Lightfoot, anything else you need to add for the record? Okay, so we'll open it for discussion. Commissioner, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just want to remind all of us, except for Commissioner Rodriguez, because you weren't here, that when we approved the division of this one property into 3 properties, there was a lot of neighbors here. And most of them went off. They were not happy that the property was being divided. And I feel that while there was that one neighbor that was being directly affected, I think that neighborhood as a whole was concerned about, all of these 2 stories going up because the majority of their houses are 1-story houses. I know that has no play in what decision you guys might make, but I want us to remember the conversations that we had with the residents who live there and have to continue to live there. And that the change to a 1-story was part of a larger conversation, not just with the one guy next door. So I think that we should keep that in mind when we consider what we're going to do.
Further comments?
No, so, I mean, and I agree with your point, obviously, if the residents are, I wasn't here, so if the residents are, but I think by right now, so you're gonna have 2-story, 2-story, and then let's say this doesn't go through, it would be 2-story, 2-story, 1-story, 2-story. At that point, that 1-story becomes, I mean, it's sandwiched in between 2 2-story homes. So I don't know, I think the question would be more on the whole
I
development.
apologize. Let me stop our conversation because I forgot to open the public hearing on this item. So before we move forward, this is a public hearing item. My apologies. Is there any member of the public who'd like to address this commission with respect to item 6? Please come forward. So we'll open the public hearing. Ms. Teasdale, please come forward. Good evening.
I have to represent all the other people that are not here, right
Sure.
now, like you mentioned. Paige Teasdale, 6620 Southwest 77th Terrace. I will represent the rest of our neighborhood that is not here. I do live across the street from that beautiful lot. Again, that is a beautiful lot that, again, we tried to get you guys to purchase. The oak trees on there are gorgeous. There are star fruit trees that are on that lot. There are a lot of wildlife that live on that lot. It would be an absolute beautiful park. People walk their dogs through there. So it's sad. It is really sad that that lot is going to be gone and taken, because it's been empty for so many years when that elderly lady passed away. Her son and daughter tried to get us to, we tried to work on trying to get you guys to purchase it. And again, like I said, when I was here, you guys were so close to getting that lot, and it didn't go through. Our neighbors, yes, we are sad to see. We do know that on the other side, on the Mango Terrace side, not on our side of Ludlam, we don't have any two-story houses right now. The other side, you can see that there has been a few going up. So it is sad knowing that these two-story houses, I understand. I drive 80th Street every day going into work. I see them popping up everywhere, all these modern two-story houses that are beautiful. I get that. And they don't fit the charm of South Miami. They would look great on South Beach. They might look great somewhere else. There is one two-story house that they did build on, I think it's 76 Terrace in Ludlam, that it does look a little bit nicer, maybe a little different architecture, that maybe look a little, I don't know how you say it, maybe southern, homely looking. That gives you a little bit more of the charm. But all of these Art Deco kind of boxy looking type of houses just don't go in our neighborhood. You go right down our street and you see these old the Key West houses that Jose, one of our neighbors, built for his sister. It's a beautiful house with a front porch that wraps around. We're losing that charm. And unfortunately, I feel like when I'm walking out of my house, I'm going to have 4 two-story houses right in front of my house, and it's going to look like an apartment complex or a townhouse complex. So it's sad to see, again, that we are losing the charm of this. And yes, I understand having 2 houses that would be 1 story would be taking up, I guess, or 3 houses taking up more green space. What about having 2 nice, bigger houses and having a nice front yard and a backyard? You could still have a pool in there. It doesn't have to necessarily be 3 houses. You could still get the money out of 2 houses. And again, there's other things that you can do to keep with the charm of the neighborhood instead of building these modern box type of townhouses that are making it like a cookie cutter type of location. Like, it just doesn't fit in South Miami. It just doesn't fit. And it's just sad to see that this is what we are coming to now, to try to cram in as many people as we can into our neighborhood. We've already got these huge high-rises that are shooting up in our neighborhood. I just don't see the need of why we are having to do this and where we're living now instead of downtown. I mean, Jason, I forgot how many, 8,000 people or how many people we have coming in here, and these high-rises that we're putting up in the next few years. I mean, look what's coming in here.
I don't know where that 8,000 person number comes from, but we can debate that
he
another day.
did the statistics.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But in our little neighborhoods, we should not have to be putting in all these little box type of townhouses.
We appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address this commission on item 6? Madam Clerk, is there anyone online?
No one.
So let's close the public hearing. Let's bring the conversation back. Hopefully close out this item. So do you want to go down the line? Commissioner Bonich, anything else you want to add for the record?
No.
Okay. Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to say, yes, I do recall that meeting, and there were a lot of people that showed up, and I remember why we ended up limiting that to 1 story. I was very happy to hear that the developer's keeping the oak trees on there. And I am happy to hear that there's going to be more green space as well. So I'm fine with it.
Okay. Commissioner Kaye.
There are 3 lots. We subdivided the lots at 10,000 square feet, which is in line with everybody around the neighborhood. I think whether the times have changed from the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and the 2000s, today we still have the opportunity to buy a house and build a house in this beautiful neighborhood. I don't see the reason why these people can't buy and be your neighbor, or anybody's neighbor in our city, specifically for this particular piece of land. Whether it's 2-story or 1-story, look, we've had this code for a long, long time. I think the mayor did a good job of just trying to appease a lot of the neighbors in the area. But truthfully speaking, there's 2 stories all over throughout South Miami that are mixed with 1 stories. It's just the way our city was built, right? That's the beautiful thing about our city, is that you can build in any episode, any different type of architecture, and there's not one piece of architecture that fits into South Miami. I think it's a mixture and a mesh of a lot of beautiful architecture. So I'm okay with this moving forward, and looking forward to having 3 new neighbors and constituents to our beautiful city.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
So I just want to, I think we have to put this out and clarify certain things. So first thing being is what we're voting on is to make that 1-story house into a 2-story house. But when it
No,
comes,
so just to be clear, we're voting to remove a restriction that the prior owner accepted as a compromise to try to harmonize the future development of the lots with the existing condition to the east.
yes, that's a more eloquent way of
Sorry,
saying
let me
yes.
just-
But the right to build on the 3 lots, and I would ask Marcus, this is by right. He's not asking for permission to do the three residences. He's
Yes, we've already approved that issue.
yeah. This has been approved already by a year ago, right?
Yeah, the plat has already been approved.
The plat's already, so he's not really asking us for permission to do 3 homes. He's just asking us to, again, as the mayor eloquently said, to remove the old requirement, and now he would be able to do a 2-story.
Correct, because by right, you can't do a 2-story in this area.
Okay, and then just to the resident, in the Mango lot on Manor Lane, there, he's asking for a complete zoning change. So that's the difference.
Yeah,
Where
that's it.
there, we have more of a vote because he doesn't have the right to do the 5 that he's proposing there by right, where this gentleman would have it already done because it's already been approved. So that's the difference between the 2. So I just wanted to clarify that, so you don't think that we're voting that we can turn down the 3 lots. At this point, it's been approved.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So to the neighbors, again, I was very sympathetic to the request before because we had an existing condition, and I chose to retain my single-family house when we remodeled it in 2013 and through 15. That was our choice. The trend certainly in my neighborhood and throughout the city is to, in many cases, maximize the amount of house you can build on it, given where values are going. I've seen neighbors that have lived in my neighborhood for 25 plus years who I thought would never tear down and rebuild a 2-story house that are doing that right now because they're thinking about what they're going to do when they head into retirement. So I think for better or worse, the code has been to allow 2 stories in the zoning district forever. We were able to solicit a restriction in that last application, where we were subdividing what should have been a park probably years ago into 3 lots that were completely consistent with the character of the neighborhood. I understand that the change is not ideal, but unfortunately that's an issue that's, that horse left the barn a long time ago. So I think in terms of being fair to the existing owner, to me, the big decisive change in circumstances between the last time we heard this and now is that the lot next door is now been approved for a 2-story home. And so I really don't see the purpose in, preserving this restriction given that change in condition. So I'll be voting in the affirmative for that reason. So with that, is there a motion on item 6? I'll move it, if that's it.
Second.
Okay. So moved by the mayor, second by the vice mayor. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes. Commissioner Kaye?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Bonish?
No.
Vice Mayor Corey?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes,
Item passes 4-1.
thank you. If you can read item 5 into the record, please.
Item 5, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement for parking enforcement management services pursuant to request for proposal number FN 2025-03.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Our current parking enforcement is outsourced to Last Parking. They manage not only garage enforcement, but on-street parking. Their current contract was set to expire, so the city went out on a solicitation and an RFP. We had 3 firms that submitted to provide these services, and a committee, internal committee of city employees reviewed and ranked these firms. Last Parking came out ranked number 1. They were not the cheapest over a 5-year period, but given the difference in price and their history with the city, and their expertise specifically with garage and on-street parking, recommendation before you is to authorize me to negotiate and execute a 5-year contract with Last Parking for a renewal of those services. Certainly happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions of the manager? I have one question. I think I asked it during our briefing, which is, I was surprised to see that the Miami Parking Authority didn't bid on this contract, and I just don't know if you had a chance to inquire with them as to why, since I know that they do provide parking enforcement services for other cities, and obviously have substantial experience managing garage inventory as well.
Besides their own, Mayor, don't they only have 1 or 2? That's it?
Sorry?
Don't they only do like 1 other?
I know most recently they picked up, I think they're doing work in Doral, I think most recently,
Doral.
and that was probably the last contract they acquired. I just don't know if they, again, I don't know if they pursue competitive opportunities, or they're done, since they are kind of a quasi-public entity, I don't know if they do it for interlocal or what the mechanism is. I was just curious to understand why, if we had any conversation as to why they had not bid.
Yeah, Mayor, I have not spoken to them directly. As you said, they didn't really participate. My understanding that they don't necessarily participate in this type of solicitation. Doral, they are providing that service for Doral, and certainly happy to discuss it with them, but obviously they didn't participate in the procurement, which I don't know that it's their practice per se. I think maybe that was more of a direct request and negotiation, and I don't have that full knowledge, but just from my historical understanding, I don't know that they traditionally participate in this procurement as these companies would.
Okay. Further comments or questions? Okay. Do we want to hear from the director, or do we want to open up a public hearing? Okay, so let's, this is a public hearing item. If any member from the public would like to address this commission on item 5, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one in the chamber, and Madam Clerk, seeing no one online,
No one's online.
we'll close the public hearing. Final comments? I just want to put this on the record, and to Mr. Rivero, I mean, Laz does a very efficient job. We'll be talking about parking enforcement later. I'd like to see this contract relationship evolve. They do have substantial experience managing garage assets. I don't think we're using their strategic experience to the full level. I'm not sure it's contemplated in our contract. Maybe something we want to talk about bringing back by way of some sort of a revision, but
You're speaking about Laz?
about Laz, yeah. I mean, Laz is they're part of a huge parking conglomerate. They've got, experience, the breadth of this country. I'd like to see this more of a strategic kind of consulting relationship rather than just a vendor contract where they're performing one limited service. Because I do think that they have the reach and the experience and the breadth of knowledge to bring a lot of value as to how we manage these assets. So if that's not something, and again, I didn't go through the fine details of the contract, but I think if that's not something that's contemplated, we should talk about how we can expand the relationship, because, I'd like to hear more proactive suggestions beyond what we got in our parking study, which was very helpful, from the vendor in terms of how we can better manage and maximize the value of the inventory, not from a monetization perspective solely, but in terms of supporting the business climate and most particularly in our town center. So just that by way of editorial comment. Yes, sir, you're recognized.
Director, if you can, I just wanted to bring something up because I did have a meeting with the director with another vendor, speaking about technology, with Bryant. That wasn't LNR, what wasn't the acronym for the system?
LPRs?
LPR?
Yeah, license plate readers.
So I was under the impression that it was something that we can start using the engineering solutions and consulting into our parking enforcement and kind of having a conglomerate like what the mayor was saying. Was that not part of this particular proposal?
Yes, we have a relationship, and we've had a relationship well before my tenure even here with Last Parking. We lean on them a lot because they are the #1 largest private parking provider in the industry. So we rely, every time we're doing a move, we strategic. Part of this contract, they are required to do certain reports for us to help us enhance our parking infrastructure, maybe on-street, off-street, parking garage. We use them in many capacities. Obviously, the primary is enforcement. We used to do collections when we had single meter heads and multi-space meters. They help maintain the parking infrastructure, painting, installing signs, fading signs, things of that nature. But as far as strategically, we lean on them a lot on that. And I work with Louis. Louis is the operations manager out of their Miami Beach headquarters, which is where they have all their resources here for South Florida. But we will use them, and we will continue to use them and strategically increase rates, lose rates. When we're doing those different things, we're doing that in conjunction with them. It's not something that's just solely done here in my office.
But from a technology base, is that something that we can leverage them as well with all these other systems? Do they provide?
Part of the agreement is they're going to give us LPR with supervision. Supervision is a huge provider in the LPR market, particularly in the garage. And that's something that we're working on right now to implement enforcement in the garage. Some of these, you see the day pass, which is 7 to 10, which we're probably going to be amending it, extending the hours to help the employees in the hospitality employees, because some are staying later than 10 o'clock. But we're going to be addressing all of those parking enforcement needs, identifying who's overnight, who's not using these LPR, which is being provided by LAS as part of this contract.
So essentially, you can set up a profile, and you drive in the garage, it scans your tag, and you get charged for the time you're in the garage.
Correct.
Without having to actually have any sort of a payment interaction.
We are working towards that, 100%.
Yes,
We're
ma'am, you're-
constantly looking at different technologies to do some stuff like that.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you. It's Metropolis.
Metropolis, yes. right, yeah.
Metropolis I've had this conversation with Alfredo for a year and a half, maybe, because that's what they have in Nashville. So I never even think about it. I just drive in, it sends me a text to my phone saying you've arrived, and when I drive out, it says thank you for parking.
Correct.
And I never think about it. And that's how I don't get tickets.
Exactly. No, it's a
So
very,
I'm glad to see that it's coming here because we sorely need it.
We're working towards that and using all technology that's available to us. They attend conferences constantly, the Florida conference, the national conference, looking at all different opportunities, and there are tons of opportunities.
further questions? Okay, is there a motion on the item?
I'll
move the
it.
motion.
Oh, I'll
Okay.
second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kaya, a second by Commissioner Bonich. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Commissioner Bonich,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Corey,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
If you can read item 7, please.
Item 7, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, relating to the city's 2024-2025 fiscal year budget, authorizing an increase of $100,000 appropriation for the Art and Public Places Fund, allocating such increase to expenditure line item 122-1790-519-3450 contractual services.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager, you're recognized, and by way of report to the commission, the Panthers are up 1-0 in the first period.
Let's go.
Thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, this commission has previously discussed this project. What this is doing really is just appropriating funds from the Art and Public Places Fund to pay for this project, which is an eligible expense. And so we're appropriating $100,000 from that fund for purposes of funding this project. And that's what this item is doing.
Questions to the manager? Okay, again, this is for the benefit of the public. The project is the mural project, correct?
Correct. This will
And-
be a mural project at the parking garage.
And we're hoping it's going to be substantially less than the $100,000 we're appropriating, correct?
It was less.
Okay.
We're just appropriating a little bit extra money. At the end of the day, we may have other projects that we would tap into this fund to do, but yes, the estimated costs are less than 100, and.
What is the estimated cost we're working on right now? So it's been a while since we discussed it.
The last item that we had was roughly about $75,000. I think I'm going off the top of my head, give or take a little bit. And we're having a conversation on how to execute the project, which may also influence pricing or reduce pricing because maybe the mesh that would go on would be smaller in nature. So I'll provide the exact number. I'm going off the top of my head. I think it was around $75,000 when we brought it before you.
Okay, can we, just as, on your next report, can you give us an update on what the actual execution is going to look like?
Yes.
The cost and, just final details. I know I thought we agreed on the direction. And I know I'm a little surprised it's taken this long to kind of get to it actually being rolled out. So if you can give us an update at our next meeting as to what the final details are, I'd appreciate it. Okay.
Will do.
Further questions?
Yeah, Mayor?
Yes,
Real
sir.
quick sec. And so just through the process, this will go back to our new board, our board, where Commissioner Bonich loves, and I want to make sure that.
I love them. They don't know me, but I love them.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it'll trigger that.
Yeah, when the ordinance was creating that committee and those representatives from those institutions,
Fantastic.
any pot of money that comes from that fund, they would review the project and give us some recommendations.
So I'm curious, just if, for example, that reviewing board, I guess it's the group Frost, all the museums, right? Okay. If for some reason they don't like the execution of the proposed art, does that come back to us for some sort of action? Or what's the disposition of the project thereafter?
Yeah, I mean, if it's substantial deviation, if you will, right, that kind of completely changes, we would come back to this commission. If there's some tweaks or recommendations to improve it, enhance, I would say that it's within the spirit of what was
Okay.
approved. So yeah, previously we had some other funds allocated that were not part of this, so that wasn't a requirement. In this case, even though it's a requirement, I think Commissioner Bonich watched the first meeting that they had and their interactions, and she was very excited to see that kind of level of input in anything having to do with the city. So
It's a good group.
we
To say
want
the
to
least.
we want to leverage that.
Okay. Further questions? Sir, you good?
I'm good.
Okay, let's open up a public hearing on this item. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak or address this commission on item 7? If so, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one in the chamber and no one online, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion on item 7?
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Bonich and a second by Commissioner Gaya. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Commissioner Bonich,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Corey,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0, first reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If you can read item 8, please.
Item 8, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, amending Section 20-8.6 parking of Article 8 Transit Supportive Development District, TSDD, of the Land Development Code to revise regulations related to parking within the TSDD.
Sir, you're recognized. Good to see you again, Mark.
Thank you very much. Mark Alvarez, Cordina Group, as a planning consultant for the city. This is an ordinance only for the TSDD. It is the parking ordinance. We're making some minor amendments to it. They are really things that we intended to do when we first wrote this ordinance, but as you know, the TSDD was a very large ordinance. We're doing 4 things here. The first thing is to consolidate all of the parking requirements in one place within that section of the TSDD ordinance. Right now, as it stands, we have to go to the city's parking section, which is 20-8.8, and kind of cross-reference. We never intended for that. We wanted everything to be in one section. 2, we had intended to consolidate all of the dimensional standards in one place. As the ordinance is written, the dimensional standards for loading are in one place. We have them in different parts of that ordinance, and we also had some in the city's main parking section, 24.4. So we consolidated everything. We created a section Section E, with just the table of dimensional standards. In doing that, we had one change to make. Right now, we had always intended, and we stated this intent from the beginning when we were working on the TSDD, that we would use urban standards for parking, try to minimize our parking, try to maximize the amount of habitable area. We want a pedestrian area, not large parking lots. So we did everything we could to minimize the parking, and we had always intended to use the minimum dimensions for a parking stall, which are 8.5 by 18. We did not have that included in the ordinance. We had to go back to 24.4, the city's more suburban standard, and use the 9-foot wide parking standards. It's not a big difference. 8.5 is a very standard size. It's just the minimum end of that size for standard cars. We're not talking about small cars. So we've made that change from or not really a change, we've created the change in a way to do an 18.5 by 8.5 foot parking stall. With that, we also have changed the aisles dimension, so the aisle that's outside of the parking space has a minimum width. The minimum width in this ordinance is 21 feet. That's again, very tight on the minimum side. That was our intent, to keep everything as small as possible. To give you the information, generally parking standards are around 24 for sort of generous aisle, 2 ways, so 12 feet each side. That's a very generous standard. There are standards that use 22. They're a little more common and they're a little more into urban areas. We actually looked at some of the standards. First of all, we copied the standards from the downtown SOMI, which is what we use 21 feet for. We also looked at City of Miami, which has some very urban standards. They've gone back and forth quite a bit on it. I think they've settled on 22 now, but they were at 21 for a while.
They were 23 for a long
Did
time.
they go up again? They've
They've been at 23 for a long time. I think they may have
21.6.
gone down to 22, but I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it's 23.
It has bounced around. So we want to keep it as minimum. We don't want 24. We pushed to the minimum side of that and used 21. With that, I will say the planning board has recommended that we would go to 22 feet for the width on that. And lastly, more of an oversight, we had as you know, the TSDD has a different set of land uses. They're general categories. One of those categories was a very particular use that's very particular to the TSDD for limited automotive business. And it's really a path for some of the businesses on Progress and Commerce Street to morph into something that's more of a retail type of automotive type business. In any case, we did not have a parking criteria for that, a parking amount criteria, so we added that into that at 1 space per 1,000 feet, which would be enough to cover one employee or owner of the place, and these businesses are very, very small volume traffic, so we didn't expect that to be a very high number. So we're using 1 per 1,000. Those are the 4 things the ordinance does, and of course, we recommend that we go forward with it.
Colleagues, any questions? You're recognized.
Thank you. I would feel more comfortable with the 22 versus
Agree.
the 21. I'm a menace in the garage, and I am the majority. I am the majority. Let's be real. Really, really good drivers, they don't live here.
You drive slow, but you're a parking menace.
I am.
Okay.
I'm-
It's a walking contradiction. A walking contradiction in parking and driving. There you go.
I have a question for Mark. Quick question. So standard parking space size is 9 feet or 8.5?
8.5 by 18 is the small end of that.
So that's more like compact?
No, that's right.
No,
That's
compact
that's
would be-
pretty standard. A related question to his is, when we have a column condition, Mark, are we requiring the extra foot, or are we just requiring 8.5?
8.5, we don't have a column condition.
So I mean, I would,
Yeah.
I would echo her comments on the 22-foot wide drive aisle. That would be my,
Meaning that if you have a column, you need to still have the 8.5.
And this,
Not having the column.
and this
We
is
didn't make an exclusion for the column to intrude into it.
so no, so most codes that I'm familiar with require the space to be extra wide when there's a column adjacent to the space. So you could have a space that's typically 9.5 foot wide,
Right.
adjacent to the column. The adjacent space's center condition is 8.5 feet by 18. And everyone down the road until you get to the next column, it's wider than the standard space. To allow for easier access in and out of the space. So is there any accommodation or any consideration for having a wider space adjacent to the column in the standard?
No, so the
We just require
architect-
8.5 feet.
Right, so in other words, they'd be 8.5 clear of the column. And that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
So what I was trying to get at is what is the average size of, let's say, like a Suburban? Because I hate parking, like, when you get that tight parking space. So I guess my ultimate question is, what are we trying to accomplish here? Just for the future buildings to have easier time fitting in their parking? Or what's the purpose of this?
We're trying to provide a standard on the parking size, correct?
Correct.
No, I understand that, but
So-
why set that standard instead of 9 feet? Why 8.5 instead of 9 feet? That's all I'm saying. Like, why are we setting that size?
We want to keep it as the smaller urban standard so that we get as many parking spaces as we can into these buildings at the
Okay,
second and
so
third and fourth
that's-
levels.
okay,
And
so that's the
I
goal.
think you had another question there too. I mean, you will see wider spaces, for example, Publix or any sort of supermarket, they typically use 10 feet because they want to accommodate people in and out of their doors a lot, putting bags and groceries in there. That's their choice, but they do that usually exceeding the parking requirements.
And I'm sorry, these questions that I'm providing is because I've done many parking lots for restaurants and other construction projects and shopping centers, and typically 10 feet is the standard that we have. 8.5 just seems like you're gonna be, that's very tight. But, I mean, if you have a nice car and you're parked and there's a big pickup next to you, like, how do you get out of the car? Those are just the things that we gotta foresee, because we're gonna set this as law, and, people are gonna.
Mark, what's the standard today?
Right now, for
Yeah,
the city?
yeah.
9 by 18.
9 by 18. And that is outside the CSCD? Sorry.
Right now, we're not specific. That was what we were trying to fix.
Okay.
We meant to have.
So again, this is a reduced standard in this immediate catchment area.
Yeah.
It does not apply to your standard, if you're rebuilding a strip mall on Bird Road.
No.
You'd be bound by the larger standard.
Yeah, this is mostly for the new developments
Correct.
that are coming
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Just in the downtown.
Just in the downtown. Yeah, correct. Which is,
Okay.
right now we have the high rises coming in, so, okay. I mean, I just,
Can I,
Further questions? Yes, you're recognized.
so can we get an idea, can I get an idea from you guys? Do you care 8.5, 9? I mean, what do you
I
guys
care about
look
the, 8.5 is a pretty typical standard. I would want to see an accommodation when you have a column condition, that you have to have a wider space, because the turning radius psychologically and otherwise is tougher to get in and out of. So definitely there, I would say 9.5 feet, add an extra foot. That's pretty standard in the codes I've worked on. You see that variation. But I think 8.5 in this context is fine. I would tell you the thing that gets hairy is the drive aisle width. So I agree with you. I would want to have a 22-foot minimum, because backing up, particularly if you get a larger truck that's already protruding into the drive aisle, because, if you've got to pick up, it's a little bit longer, maybe it's 20 feet, it's already a foot and a half encroaching into the drive aisle, that maneuver in and out gets very tight. So I would prefer to see us bump up the drive aisle with 22 feet at minimum.
So then, are we okay as a group with the 8.5, but we want the 22?
no, the 22 is different than the 8.5.
Yeah, I know what I'm
I
saying.
would prefer, I mean, if, I'm not gonna be living in these buildings, but I'm saying, if I lived in those buildings, I would prefer 9, just because, I've been in those tight spaces where you're like, who the hell designed this? And you're trying to get out of your car, and you're trying not to hit the car next to you. I mean, for half an inch, I guess,
It makes a huge difference, I will tell you. It makes a huge difference in the amount of,
parking spaces.
no, not about, yeah, well, ultimately, I think what the balance we're trying to strike is we want more habitable, leasable, sellable space than parking that's gonna sit, vacant, and so, or empty for a majority of the day. So, that's the trade-off. It's, I will tell you that the more I do believe, and it's gonna sound, some people may be crazy from a Democrat, but I think the market adjusts to Mark's point, what the preference is for the use. And so you'll see, without question, we could have a parking standard that requires one space per 1,000 square feet. And if it's a grocer, they're gonna want their typical 3.5 or 4 spaces per 1,000. So the market adjusts to what its standard is based on the product type. I would tell you, I think an 8.5-foot standard as the minimum is fine. My concern is not the space dimension, if there is an accommodation for columns, because columns, if that space is 8.5 without the column, it's fine, but you add the column, getting in and out of the space, just to park it, forget getting out of the car, a whole different conversation. It gets very tight. But the drive aisles to me is where people want to cheat because, it does eat up a lot of real estate, but it does make the functionality of the garage and the experience in the garage a lot more unpleasant to maneuver in and out of. That's just my personal observation as a practitioner and as a user of some of these spaces.
Thank you.
And by the way, if you have a nice car, secret is park between the columns.
That's what, yes, that's exactly what, yes.
If those spaces exist, yeah, those are the best. Okay, so do we have a motion with modifications? How do we want to advance the item?
Do we want to then move it forward at 8.5
And 22.
wide by 20, and then the 22 feet?
So the only modification would be to the drive aisle width at 22 feet.
22?
The second modification, again, Mark, if it's not expressly called out, I don't want to add it now, but if on second reading, we can account for some extra space when there's a column adjacency, that's fine. Okay. So we have a motion to move item 8 with the modification that the drive aisle minimum width be set at 22 feet as opposed to 21. Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Bonich, a second by Commissioner Kaya for the adoption as amended. There's no public hearing requirement. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll on this one.
Yes, Commissioner Bonich,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Corey,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Great, if you can read item 9, please. Thank you, Mark. Have a good evening.
Item 9, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, relating to a South Miami pension plan by amending Chapter 16 pensions, specifically Section 16-14 pension benefits and retirement date, Section 16-15 disability benefits, Section 16-16 death of a participant, Section 16-21 purchase of credited services, and Section 16-32 City of South Miami Police Officers Retirement Trust Fund, created in order to effectuate the pension-related provisions of the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the Fraternal Order of Police.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager, you're recognized on this item.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. This ordinance amends and modifies the city's police pension plan to incorporate 4 state-mandated minimum benefits that are available to shared plans. A shared plan is a plan that has both municipal funds and monies that are received through the state on policies a surcharge that's written at the state level and made available to police agencies, municipal police agencies through Chapter 185. This will allow these benefits to be derived by the members of the plan, police officers, that they currently do not enjoy, and this will be funded by those revenues. Also, it provides for the ability to purchase time and other credible service from prior law enforcement employment with other municipal or county agencies, or state or federal for that matter. Some of these benefits have been incorporated into the bargaining agreements that you've approved here recently, both for PBA and FOP. So this is providing the vehicle to do so. So again, we're providing minimum benefits required by the plan and using the surcharge collected through the state for these benefits. Certainly can answer any question you may have.
Colleagues, any questions?
No.
Mr. Manager, just my only question, has the pension board reviewed and approved these modifications?
Yeah.
They
yes.
have? Okay, fair enough. Okay, seeing no further questions, is there a motion on item 9?
I'll move the motion, Mayor.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Kaya, second by Commissioner Bonich. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Commissioner Bonich,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Corey,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Thank you. Let's take up our discussion items. Do we want to start with M3 on moving or canceling the commission meeting for July 15th? I believe last time we'd had some preliminary conversation in our workshop about possibly canceling July 15th meeting, since we do have a trim notice meeting on the 29th. Is that correct, Mr. Manager?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I believe we have a trim notice meeting scheduled for the 29th of July.
Yes, that's what we have.
So our thought was to consolidate our regular business meeting and that meeting on the same date, so we're not here for that one item. So unless there's an objection, do we want to move to cancel the meeting on July 15th?
Sounds
And-
good to me.
And reschedule for the 29th?
Sounds good.
That require action, Madam Clerk, or just the direction sufficed?
This direction is up.
Okay, thank you. So let's consider item M3 resolved. Mr. Munoz, let's let you go next, and then we'll make Mr. Riverall wait. He just got back from vacation, so, you know.
Alfredo, just means you're saving the best for last.
Exactly, exactly. Believe it or not, I think your item's going to be easier, Mr. Riverall.
Mr. Mayor, I'll tee this up a little bit while we're getting the presentation ready, and the director will speak on this item. This is something that has been ongoing for a bit, where we've been doing some research on the manner in which we provide garbage and trash service as it relates to properties of a particular size. And part of the research was really understanding who is being served, who is not being served, and how does that service comport with what the code requires of the city. Obviously, there's been a lot of research done for quite a while, so Director Munoz is going to go through a little bit of the stats and provide some information, of which at some point we would need some direction from this commission on how you would want to proceed relating to the code and the ordinance that provides how this service is provided. And there's some ideas within the presentation. So this is a culmination of some research of quite some time. And I'll let Director Munoz give you the specifics.
Good evening. Now, we're going to go through the presentation. I know you've seen some of this already before, and we'll keep it moving quickly. It's kind of summary level information.
By the way, I love the green motif,
Thank you.
leafy motif for a trash presentation.
I
It's
looked very hard
appropriate.
for that. I'm glad somebody appreciates
Yeah,
it.
thank
Thank you. So this is what we're going to try to set out to do right here, understanding the current ordinance, which I think a lot of you do already. Who receives service? We'll do a quick overview on that, how our services align with the ordinance, and then the impacts, and then obviously discussion or throughout as you have questions, of course. So just to level set, right, we have garbage and we have trash. Slight difference there. Garbage is the stinky stuff, the food, the stuff that comes out of the home for the most part. And trash typically is your vegetative, yard waste, and also the white goods for the city, which we do have additional fees for those, but that's how we divide up our service. This is about as much information as we get into here in terms of heavy slides. And really the punchline on this is, and let me see if this works. Very cool, yes. The punchline on this is what the code says that we can pick up versus what the private haulers pick up, and it's 4 or more attached commercial residential units. That's for the private haulers. So the city services, the way the code reads, is supposed to be only up to 3 units. So single-family homes or duplexes for the most part. The code goes on to further say and define how we're supposed to, who provides those services. And you got to read a couple of parts of it together, but the punchline ends up being that we, the city, cannot service, if you read this section here, we, the city, cannot service the commercial solid waste, residential commercial, and the private haulers do. So just wanted to get through that because it's kind of the backbone of what we're discussing. This is the punchline in terms of how our services align with the code. So we do duplexes and single-family homes for the most part in alignment with the code. However, we do have properties, customers that are not in alignment with the way the code reads today, and it's 7 properties totaling 150 units. So I will pause there as we go to the second part of this, if there's any questions on that part. No? Okay. So then we started to look at options. And these are random options, I must say, just different scenarios to include properties that, at the different levels for which we're providing services to, not in alignment with the code. So scenario one, we just picked the number 9 because it picks up a lot of properties that we were similar to the ones that we are providing services to. We're providing services to a couple of properties that are 9 and 8 units. So we went up to 9 here. Very low impact in this scenario, about a 2% impact, so easy enough to pick up. You see scenario 2 goes up to 20, which was another grouping of units, and that picks up, this is a cumulative number here, so it's the 1 plus whatever the extra properties are in scenario 2 for a total of 19 properties and 236 units. That's about a 7% increase, a little bit more difficult to pick up, but it's doable, as I'll show you on the next slide coming up. And then the last scenario that we looked at was up to 50 units, because there are a couple of properties that we service that are near that amount. And so that one is a lot more sizable, and it looks like a 20% increase there. It does add 743 units. This is a quick summary on the fact that we feel comfortable in picking up scenarios 1 and 2. Excuse me. If you see there, you have total of 236 units. That would be the impact. When you look at this together with what we do today, this little section here, just to remind you all, is how our service looks today. We have Route A and Route B on Mondays and Thursdays, doing 961 and 841 properties. And then on the other route days, Tuesdays and Fridays, you can see that they're in the 600s. So you could easily take those units there and add them into those Tuesday, Friday. And I'm not saying we would do that just on a straight line basis. We would look at the whole universe of what we're doing and realign as we need to. But just mathematically, we know that it can be done, and we feel comfortable with that. The next scenario is the one that I described a little bit earlier, which is a little more sizable. And would require at 743 total, right here, would require additional resources. So that, and just you did not see this information before, just added this in. We were waiting for some numbers on what the impact of that would be on the financial side. So we took each of those scenarios that I previously described, looked at those properties. These are estimates because in one of the scenarios we couldn't identify a few of the properties, but these are rough scenarios, rough amounts of what we would lose in franchise fee in each scenario, depending on what you pick, or cumulatively if we pick them all. And then the cost, so that you have the cost at your fingertips there. A garbage truck runs about $450, could be more or less at the time that we go to a market. And an equipment operator, depending on where you bring them in with fringes, is $60,000 to $95,000.
So just before you go on,
Yep.
just to understand, so is it $7,000 plus $25,000 plus $29,000, or is it?
Correct.
Okay, so that's the incremental cost per tier.
No,
Yes.
if you decided that you're going to do scenario 3, then the franchise fees that would be lost would be the addition of the 7, the 25, and the 29.
63.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the direct line cost of executing all those scenarios? So for scenarios 1 and 2, there are no additional direct costs because we have latent capacity? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, we could absorb it within our existing services.
Okay, because I saw increases of 7% for scenario 2 in a prior slide, so I want to know 7% above what
Yeah.
base?
7% of over what we're doing today.
Volume?
Yeah.
Volume, but not
Units.
not
Units, not cost.
Not cost.
Units.
Okay, that's what I want to understand.
Yep,
Okay,
units.
Thank you.
And through the mayor, if I may.
Hold on a second. Yes.
Oh,
Go ahead.
and additionally, scenario 3, if you go back to the last slide, it's not only the 7, the 25, the 29, but for that scenario, it would also be purchasing a new truck
Correct.
and a new equipment operator.
Correct. Yes.
So it's Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to absorb that with the existing resources.
But scenario 1 and 2, you do not have to buy an extra truck, and you do not need another operator.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
But we have to keep in mind that if we do scenario 1 or scenario 2, we're losing a franchise fee. So we're adding to our workload and taking away $32,000.
Yeah, no, I'm clear on that.
62.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then lastly, last slide here, is we did want to talk about trash, just to, have the whole conversation. Trash is a little bit easier to absorb. Different truck, different crew, different equipment. They're out there every day. The total impact, we do service a few properties currently. We've serviced 3 properties, which equals 72 units, not in alignment with the code. However, for trash, it's not as dependent upon the properties as it is the units, because you go to one location and although there's a lot of units, there's only one trash pile. So that when we, based on the worst case scenario, we would pick up a total of 38 properties that we think could easily be serviced, because that would break out if you divide it, by 7 to 8 properties a day, depending on, how they align on the service. So that one's a little bit easier to absorb. And we also have the crews on both garbage and trash. Yeah, they're not finishing at 3:30 at the end of the day, they're finishing earlier. So there is time left in the day for them to squeeze that into what they do.
Okay.
And that's it for at least setting the conversation.
Okay. Commissioner Kai, I think you had a question, so I'll start.
Well, I had
I'll
a-
start right to left.
Yeah, I had a comment on the franchise fee. So those franchise fees are assuming that from day one, that's what we would lose, right? So that's accurate, right?
Correct, that would be
Yeah.
day one, which, as we've discussed, that's not gonna be that easy to, we gotta look at
Yeah,
all those
so
contracts.
just so the commission knows, to get rid of those contracts for these commercial buildings, extremely difficult, right? So these contracts that Waste Connections and Waste Management have with these HOAs and buildings are very tight and extremely difficult to get rid of. So
Yeah, there's a long lead time to know.
long lead time.
to
So just so
terminate.
you guys understand, it's not a direct cutoff. The 7 and the 20, whatever the number was, 7 and 25, it won't work right off the get-go. It'll trickle over time. All right, so I guess my comments too, right?
Yes.
If you look at all the numbers, for me, scenario 2 encompasses the best scenario where we take care of a lot of kind of miscellaneous in-betweens. There's only like 2 opportunities that might be in some gray area that we probably need to finagle. Those 2 that will be in the gray area, currently we're servicing with our cans, not necessarily waste, like the big trash bins. The bins, not necessarily the big, I always forget the differentiation. What's the big?
Dumpster.
The dumpsters. Thank you.
Dumpsters.
So if we continue to do that, they will still fall under the 20. Right now, I think it's 17 bins for one condo association and probably another 17 for the other condo association. So technically, it's still under the 20. I know we haven't really differentiated based on bins for some of these scenarios, but I just want you guys to understand that's what it looks like.
Okay, but just to be clear, the analysis is done on a per unit basis, correct? Not on a per bin basis?
Correct.
Yeah, so we did consider how long it takes to pick up bins. We did, it's not dumpsters, it's bins, just to make sure that our time, analysis, made sense. And because the bins do take, the bins take a little bit longer. But no, this is based on units.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, thoughts, comments?
I'm in complete agreement with Commissioner Guy as far as scenario 2. I do believe that those 2 properties, the different thoughts that I have, aside from everything he said, is that these 2 properties have been, basically, we've been picking up their trash since the 80s, so they know nothing.
You're talking specifically, you're talking about the Banyans, correct? And you're talking
And
about
57, Miller 57.
Miller and 67 and the Banyans, those are the 2 largest.
Correct. And
ones that-
they've been getting their trash picked up since, like I said, since the 80s. Nobody can, John says since before he's been here, and he's been here forever, so.
John, you're an old man.
John, you're I just think, and then the other properties, they've never had it. So I just think we need to be smart and figure out how to keep those two properties. Maybe, I know this is a bad word, but like grandfathered or figure out something. Because the other properties never had it. So I guess it's harder to get residents that you take it away from them when they've always had it, rather than give them something that they've never had. So that's it.
I want to get a clarification. I'm not sure if there's a recommendation embedded here. This is just for discussion. There's no, so I want to, on the trash side, just going down the line here, are we proposing to service all these properties from a bulk trash perspective?
No, not necessarily. I
Okay.
mean, that, we just provided that because we didn't want to leave it out of the
Okay.
discussion.
Because
But
we only have 3 that are receiving service today, and
there's only 3 receiving service on the trash side.
and none should be receiving service, correct?
Not in alignment with the code, correct. They
Yeah,
wouldn't be
okay.
receiving service.
Like, my thought on that portion of the issue is that we should just pull the Band-Aid off of those 3 and come into compliance with what our code is, since it's a relatively small amount, as opposed to expanding that service, which is just
For the garbage or
for
the trash?
For the trash. For the trash.
When it comes to the trash, yeah, I'm less,
Separate the
I'm
trash
more
issue.
lenient.
Okay.
The garbage is, I guess, I said it wrong, the garbage is the one that those 2 properties I've always had. So I think with the bins, I think if we take those away, you're gonna have a lot of angry residents.
The only other question I had on the garbage side is, we have an analysis on lost revenue associated with franchise fees, and I concur with Commissioner Kaye. I don't think the revenue hit's gonna be that linear, day one. But I don't have, again, data here is hard to come by. So I'm wondering whether we have a sense of what the tipping costs are associated with the additional volume with picking up these accounts under any of these scenarios.
The tipping is 87 to include.
No, I know the raw number, I know what the fee is, but I'm wondering, do we have a projection on the volume
Oh, no.
for each of these scenarios? And how do we get our hands around that? Because that's the other cost side here that right now we're not responsible for.
Yeah, I think we need to
Correct.
do some more due diligence with these properties and with
Yeah.
the agreements, as was mentioned by Commissioner Kaya, to see what the reality is of how long and the reality of even getting out of those. We'd have to do some more due diligence in
Oh,
that.
that's a separate issue, because that's their contractual issue. I don't want to make it my issue.
Right, I'm saying
Right,
in
so
terms
we
of
can-
getting the information.
Yeah, I know, but so what I'm saying is, we can establish a policy that says, we adopt scenario 2, we're gonna service buildings up to 20 units. It may take a building 3 years to be able to take advantage of that service. But I want to understand what we're buying in terms of average volumes, right, under all these scenarios. So, I mean, we've got to have a rate in terms of, we got to know what the average household produces in terms of waste per bin, right? Or we can divide what we're picking up today by our total gross tonnage and come up with a number, and then ascribe a value to it. So that's the next part of the analysis I would certainly like to see, because I think that's still missing as part of this conversation. Those were my comments, so I'll move it down the line here. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, this seems reasonable in scenario 2. I would just love to see, if we did bring it back, how we plan to roll that out to the residents who are
Very
no longer
painfully.
receiving services.
feel
And
like I
those
wanna be a
who
part
are, how we would do that, whether we would give them a period of time to adjust, or how we're going to be communicating with them.
We'll provide some recommendations. That'll be part of the communication plan, yes.
Thank you.
I must say that I find it shocking that none of you have actually made mention of the fact that it's all wrong. I don't know how many of you have offices in this city where Mr. Hector Rabi came and knocked on the door this past year and said, by the way, the county made a mistake. They didn't bill you for X, Y, and Z for X amount of years, and now you have to pay it. There was no conversation at the county of, oh, my bad. Forget about paying me. Not only are we not doing that, we're actually taking it to the other extreme and saying, we gave this to, I'm making this up, to 3 people, so now we have to give it to everybody, instead of saying, we made a mistake. Somebody somewhere made a mistake. Our code states 3. So everybody who is above 3 needs to figure themselves out. Conversely, even say, hey, I'm going to take scenario 1, which is the lowest impact to the city. Nobody has even talked about that, which is shocking to me because all of that equals time and money. So when we're having this discussion, I think we need to start on the ground floor. Nobody by our books should be getting this. So, but that's not the point. Just
It's
the
not-
county
it is-
said
it
the
is-
same
It
thing.
is not, no, that's a different thing.
How's it different?
It's different, it's a contractual matter, and they pass along the cost to us, right?
No, no, but no.
Are we talking about the same, is this the,
Local business tax?
no, we're talking about the, we deferred, they apparently underbilled us on our recycling, is that what we're talking about?
No,
I'm sorry.
no. If you have a business in the city of South Miami, not us, any business, Mr. Hector Rabi came and knocked on your door not too long ago and said, oops, the county didn't realize that for X amount of years, they did not bill X, Y, and Z. So
They didn't bill them for their BTRs.
Correct, the DERM review.
And the DERM
They were
review.
supposed to, they say review, and they did not, and therefore there's a fee with that, and they were going back to collect.
To collect
on
the
that,
fees.
and saying that they were supposed to be part of that.
Again, I don't know how this is in any way relevant to what we're
No,
talking
what
about.
I'm saying is, when some other municipality or the county makes a mistake or realizes there is an oversight, they correct. They don't say, let's just add everybody. Or we have a sprinkle of people over here that we gave something
but
to
if
and
we've-
we didn't give to the rest. But we're not even starting at the ground floor
But we're
of this
performing, but I guess the point I'm making is we've been performing the service
For
for
some.
decades. Now, it's not like a few years, for decades. Because I went back and asked Mr. Munoz, when I looked at the legislation that was adopted, of record, it was adopted in 2007. I figured at that point, they were trying to correct for the practice. And there's like zero legislative history around what we were trying to do. So it's impossible to tailor what was happening with what the code says. At best, as best I understand, the city has never followed its code with how it's collected garbage. Is that a fair statement or not?
Well, to this
Or
point, yeah, to this
substantially
point, we
departed
found
from its
no-
code.
We can't confirm any information.
So how we ended up with this set of practices is a mystery to everyone who's worked here for 20-plus years and to each of us sitting up here. Now,
But then why wouldn't we start, again, at the ground floor? The ground floor is 0. The code, what is written by the city, whether we have followed it or not, is 0. I'm not saying scenario 1, scenario 2, or scenario 3 is the correct one.
For me, that
I'm just saying we just haven't done it.
For me, that represents a service reduction. That's how I arrive at my conclusion and understanding why I asked for scenario 3 to be included, so we would understand what the incremental impact would be of getting to a level where we say, okay, everything below 50 units, we are going to service through our solid waste department, because that is the outer bound of the largest project, I think it's 43 units that we're servicing today. So we understand, and when we're communicating to the public, what is a zero service reduction? It is a standard that says we're going to service every building below 50 units. Not an arbitrary number that was set, God knows when, without any reference to our actual practice. That doesn't, as far as we can tell, does not relate to anything we've done here in all of our adult lifetimes. Commissioner Kaye, you're recognized.
Commissioner, I just want to understand, when you say start at 0, what does that mean? Are you
When
saying
you-
that anybody that's over 4 units, any
4
building
units
that's
or more would be in the commercial category.
Okay, but
You're
wait.
saying that anything over 4 units,
If-
retroactive, they have to go pay?
No, I'm not,
I'm
what
trying to
I'm
understand what
saying what I am saying is, our discussion isn't even starting at the ground floor.
Well, what does that mean?
It means our code says less than 4.
Okay.
We've messed it up, okay? I'm not saying we didn't mess it up. Let's pretend we messed it up for 50 years.
So you're saying leave it as is?
No, I'm just saying, can we start the conversation at the ground floor? We've literally jumped to scenario 2 because in our minds, I think, we realize that it means no service interruption and we can cover it. But that doesn't, we're adopting something and we're having a discussion about adopting something that is 17 or 16 more than what our code says. So why wouldn't we start the discussion
At 4?
at 4? I mean, I understand that we've given something to people for free forever. It doesn't mean that it is right. It doesn't mean.
But it's not, but let's be clear, it's not free.
No, but
They're paying for it. It's
but only some
embedded, it's,
people.
only some
That's
people.
what I was gonna say.
Only some people. So what about the people that have been paying for it all these years?
So should we, so if we're gonna go to have an equity argument, then the equity argument should break out this entire operation and set up an enterprise fund. Do we want to do that? Because that's a zero-based conversation.
I think.
Before I get to zero base, that is as zero base as you're gonna
No,
get.
I say our conversation needs to start at what the code says and talk up. We've literally jumped to 20 because I think that meets a magic number in our heads that doesn't cost us
But
more money.
I think you are drawing the conclusion that we've all reached a conclusion. I certainly have not. I think the biggest piece of missing information is what is the actual cost to tip, right, all this
Yep.
additional volume? And so I certainly need to understand that economic piece before I make any decision at 20 or 50%. I simply wanted the information of understanding what a scenario that would cover what our practice has been. Right, wrong, or indifferent is what we've been doing for as long as anyone here can tell. And so I don't disagree with the fact that you're making a point that let's get back to baseline. But my point to you is, in retort, is that there's never been a practice at the baseline. So I think it's like this fictional argument about rolling back your tax rate when you know you've had 6% and 9% cost because of inflation on services every year. As much as you would want to do it theoretically, and the state wants to characterize it as a tax increase, you can never achieve it because costs go up. So similar here, we can talk about a code that says we should only be servicing 3 units or less. But if for 50 years we've been servicing everything up to 43 units, I think it's prudent to ask, well, maybe that's our baseline. And we should work back from that, because I think that all the people that we're going to communicate with about this issue, whatever scenario we choose, 0 to your scenario.
Well, that's
1,
not
2, or-
necessarily what my choice is.
No, I know,
I'm
but I'm
just saying
saying
we have
0,
not started.
0, 1, 2, or 3, right? For anyone who's not in one of the scenarios that we adopt, they're going to see it as a service reduction, and we're going to have to explain it to them. So,
When you look at it though, if you look at scenario 3, realistically, right now, the Miller 67 and Rittenhouse, they are above scenario 2. But
I agree.
so is the building that's going up in the corner, so is the one that's gonna go up across the street, so is the one that's coming here.
yeah, but those buildings are, it's not even, let's be clear.
But-
We're
but
talking,
I'm-
it's order of magnitudes larger than what the problem we're talking about today. So, I mean, let's keep that, let's not analogize.
No, but I'm saying you're gonna have other things coming up that will fall within this. So while we are having a conversation, can we please not jump to scenario 2? We don't even know what scenario 1 is.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I've already gone through that process in my head and a lot of numbers that I've done. And that's the one I want. That's just my opinion. Whether I jump to conclusions that as a matter of opinion, it's not. It's something I've done a lot of research on. More so, there's a lot of stuff that I want to work on top of this that goes into the commercial part of it, where we need to open up more franchisees, because right now, we only have 2, and our commercial businesses are getting reamed. So this will move forward into commercial, that we need to open it up as well, just as a matter of opinion.
Well, those are 2 completely different things.
They kind of are and they're not. They're franchises. We're talking about franchises right now.
Look, I mean, we have one building, for example, that we brought into our operation recently, or talked about bringing to the operation. They came to us begging and pleading to be included because the cost escalation on their commercial contracts has been exorbitant, right? So that's also another driver here in trying to preserve affordability for people. I think, I want to ask some questions generally, if I can, Commissioner Munoz, about some related issues. Number one is the only prohibition on serving commercial properties in our own code. We're not prohibited from serving commercial properties by interlocal or any other contractual relationship with a third party.
That's my understanding, yeah, my reading of the code. but
Okay,
I don't
so-
know if you have anything else to add to that.
So right now, from what we saw in the presentation, we have a prohibition on serving anything that we deem to be commercial, which is 4 or more units, right?
Right.
And I'm just asking the question, is there any other limitation by interlocal or whatnot on us servicing commercial properties?
I didn't see, not the way I read it.
Our franchise agreements with commercial haulers, I'm assuming we have a contract with each commercial hauler that we're required to abide by and they're required to abide by. And so another question is, are we potentially in breach of those agreements by virtue of our current practice?
Mayor, we can certainly look at the two franchise agreements and see if there's anything in there.
Okay,
that
I mean, I'd just like to understand, and maybe we need an executive session to discuss that, to understand what our legal posture is, vis-à-vis those two commercial haulers. Third, my other question is for further discussions. I don't think the intention was to arrive at a conclusion today. We're just getting the benefit of what staff's analysis was, is can we actually, we've been talking about this interlocal with the county modification and possibly having our own waste-to-rail transfer facility. Can we require our commercial haulers to tip at a city-designated facility?
That would be part of the agreement that they're going to review.
Correct. So I just want to understand whether there's, and again, is there any prohibition via our interlocal, assuming it's modified, consistent with what we discussed most recently with the county, to us kind of geo-fencing and requiring them to dispose at a city facility, right? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
When we're talking about trash, we need to understand, or at least I need to understand.
I'm just talking about garbage right now.
No, I
Yeah.
know, but you were saying, you're talking about tipping, which made it pop into my head. When we're looking at trash, if we're gonna say we're not gonna service anybody, like, does the county pick it up? Like, how's that gonna work? Or if we decide we're gonna do something, do we wanna do what the county does, which is, hey, you get twice a year?
So trash, again, is subject to their commercial, I'm assuming their commercial contract with one of the two vendors that are franchised in the city. So bulk waste or vegetative waste, the vegetative waste is either removed by their landscape contractor, and they pay for it as part of that service, I'm guessing, or bulk trash, it's removed pursuant to their contract with their commercial waste hauler. Again, if I'm misspeaking, please correct me.
It could be either or.
Either or.
Yeah.
So, my concern about adding trash into this conversation for all of these buildings is that the overwhelming majority are not getting the benefit of that service today. So why increase the burden on our general fund, right? Because all we're gonna see there is additional costs in terms of disposing of waste. So, vegetative material otherwise. So my goal is to fix what is a misalignment of our code with our practice in terms of how we handle garbage. And whether that's scenario 0, 1, 2, or 3, I think we need some more information on costs, particularly the cost of disposing of that volume in any of those scenarios. And I think we've got a pretty good size on what we stand to lose long-term in terms of recurring revenue, in terms of franchise revenues, and I think our cost to staff scenario 3, which would be the most aggressive scenario in terms of additional manpower and capital. Anything else we want to ask staff for in terms of trying to understand this issue for our next discussion, and when do we want to have that next discussion? Sir, you're recognized. And I'll go down the road, down the way again.
I also had a suggestion, an idea that, I keep on bringing up bins because we do have that currently as your kind of tipping point, if you will. If we have the opportunity to put in legislation, instead of doing it by units, or that we do it by bins, as an allocation towards commercial or residential condos, that might be a solution as well, that there's a cutoff at 20 bins. So for example, the Banyans, right now currently they're at 17. If they go up to 20, if they go over 20, they now go to commercial and they have to get their own trash. So I'm not saying that's the solution, but that's a thing that I thought about, and that we would need to change legislation to make it based on bins. So just a thought process.
Do we have a standard as to how many bins we require per residential dwelling unit?
No, I asked that question.
No. And
at one time, one of these properties was serviced through dumpster, when we had the equipment that would accommodate that.
And a front loader that would accommodate it?
When we switched, then when the city switched to a different vehicle, then they went to the bins. The number, as far as I understand, it's kind of random. Obviously, we're not getting complaints that individuals are not able to find space for their garbage, or else they would call. So 17 bins has supported 43 units in one property, but no standard that I'm aware of.
Okay. Comments, questions? What else do
I
you want
mean-
to see by way of information, and when do you want to have this follow-up conversation?
So, quick question, because I'm looking for it here, so, but I can't find it. Maybe it is here. Over 4 units, how many buildings are we servicing for garbage that are over our code, our current code? And I already know of the 2 special
Over
cases.
4 units?
No, I just clarification, the code reads 4 or more.
Okay,
So if
4
that's-
or more.
So
that's
it's
what
3,
you're-
over
you
3.
wanted to
Okay,
know.
over 3, so
Yeah.
4 or more.
43, I think.
How many, I remember we went over it, but I don't see the numbers here.
I think it was 743, wasn't it?
No, buildings, like
Buildings.
complexes.
34.
34 properties. And that we're doing right now.
34 properties, no, if you went up, no, that we're
No,
doing right
no.
now?
I'm
Oh,
asking
that we're doing-
right now, how many over, 7?
Yeah,
Seven.
How many
Yes,
over
7.
3 are we servicing?
7.
7.
It was 150.
And of the 7, 2 of them are the 2 property, Miller 57th and the Banyans,
Right.
correct? So, when it comes, for me, we have to do something about those 2. If we get rid of the other 5 and stick to the 4, I'm open to that. But when it comes to the Banyans and when it comes to Miller 67th, these are properties that have been serviced for decades. I don't want to be going to those residents telling them now we're taking something that you've always had, however they got it. They got lucky. However they got it, and now taking that away from the residents, because at the end of the day, they do pay for it in their property taxes when they pay for their units.
Yeah.
So if we want to cut the other 5, okay, so we don't lose any franchise fees. We don't lose any money that we're making off the franchise fees. But I am strong about keeping the other 2 properties, however it is that we figure it out, grandfathering them, whatever it is, that's where I stand.
Can we draw a legal distinction on that basis? Yes.
I think conceivably we could. We just need to look at each property on a case-by-case basis and analyze each one.
But we'd have to keep all 7 and 150 units in our current program.
I think we can
Those are
conceivably do that. We
Yeah,
can
I mean, I think
look at it.
we can't grandfather some and not all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, so I think if you can get us an opinion as to whether we have a rational basis for drawing that distinction,
Which,
right?
oh,
That would be helpful.
which at the end of the day, if we stay with those 7, nothing changes. We still receive all the franchise fees that we're getting now. There's no loss of scenario 1, 2, or 3, correct, Alex?
There's no, if you just keep those 7 properties, nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
Right. It's just absorbed within what we have, just addressing the, code alignment. So, just so that we're
Again, I just
doing this
feel,
correctly into the future.
I just feel taking something away from residents that they've always had is a lot more difficult than giving someone who's never had it.
Have we, I mean, did we finally check any of the, I mean, those buildings are not, I mean, the Banyans are not terribly old. I mean, they're, 30,
No, they get remodeled all the time.
but they were built in the last probably 30 years,
In the, early 80s.
early 80s, so.
There's no, we even checked billing, because like I mentioned, that the previous versions of the code had an amount to be charged to properties directly for garbage. But there's no documentation. Finance went back and checked. There's no record of any charges or being billed to properties. There's no list of properties available to say that we even did it.
Did we check any of the development orders on those buildings to
haven't done that.
confirm whether or not one of the conditions was that we were going to provide garbage service to those particular buildings? I mean, I just think, let's turn over that one stone and see if there's a way for drawing a distinction that's more principled than just saying, we've always done it that way.
Yeah.
My discomfort is with treating parties that are in the same situation similarly because they happen to have the benefit of,
Getting
you know,
lucky.
our malpractice.
Right.
Yeah.
And what do we say to an HOA that comes to us when we grandfather them in and say, hey, why weren't we included in this originally?
So, but I do understand, I think it is 100% true, it's harder to take something away from someone who's been getting it forever. But I'd prefer to do it on the basis of something that was some affirmative action other than just our inaction and the establishment of a practice historically. Okay, but, so any additional follow-up questions? When do we want to discuss this item next? Do we want to do this before, have a follow-up on the 29th so we can try and take some action before we go into our next budget? What's the board's preference?
Do you think that we'll have enough time on the 29th?
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
we have so much going on the 29th, I think.
I would say move it probably to the next one.
Yeah, to the one after that is what I would,
Okay, so we're talking about September.
August?
Are we meeting in
No,
August?
Yeah.
We have to. We have to meet at least once, no?
We haven't canceled any meeting in August yet.
Okay.
By code. Sorry, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
By code, we have to have one in August?
One, yes.
One, okay.
Yeah, so
Fair
I
enough.
would say move it to August.
We'll move it to August then.
That
Okay.
gives them time to look at all the development things, crunch more numbers, and see where we land legally.
Well, to Mr. Munoz and the team, thank you for the exhaustive analysis, and at least helping us understand where we are, right? And we look forward to getting a couple more questions answered. Thanks.
Thank you.
Moving on to item M1, parking enforcement. Mr. Riverall, you're recognized.
Mayor, I'm gonna,
And just by way of update, the Panthers were up 2-0 at the end of the first period. I'll check on the score again now.
If none of us talk on this
2-0.
one, you can go watch the game.
Yeah, it's okay. Now, if I watch, they lose, so it's better off I'm just checking the score. So. And when I watch, they lose, so that's it. The only two games I've seen this
Oh,
series.
no, then you're
Yeah, I'm not watching. I'm not watching.
You're not watching.
I'm not watching. Mr. Manager, you're gonna kick us off on
Yes,
item
sir.
M1?
Yes, sir. We previously had a conversation in regards to a request that Commissioner Rodriguez had wanted us to take a look at if we stopped enforcement at 10 p.m. for all days of the week, what that would look like. Prior to that, we had done some additional work as a result of some questions that the commission had asked and the mayor had asked us to review. At that last meeting, when we discussed the enforcement stopping at 10 p.m., the mayor made reference to the prior research and wanted us to take a look at that information and see what that would provide. So what we're showing you is a snapshot of really a 4-week effort that was done. They pretty much mirror each other, so I'm just, the one that you have on the screen is April 1st, but you could pretty much see that each week thereafter, there's a pattern. And the pattern sort of validates what's going on, which is that at the late hours, the citation revenue either equals and or exceeds the paid revenue. And so, and you see that pattern. What you see before you is on red is citation revenue in this line graph. And then the blue is the parking revenue. So when blue and red kind of touch, or blue dips below red, is where you see that, that in fact enforcement revenue is exceeding parking revenue. Therefore, what we are bringing forward is, and the request that was made of us is, if we stop enforcement at 10 p.m. all days, what's the fiscal impact to that? Roughly 50,000. That's a moving target depending on when we do it, but in order of magnitude, it would be 50,000. So what we're saying is that we would go ahead and do that. I could do that administratively, but because this had commission discussion and was asked to bring it back to take a look at this a little further, we're bringing it back. And so we would stop enforcement at 10 p.m. for all days, which this line graph pretty much validates. That's when we have that conflict that I just described. Certainly happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Sure. Commissioner Bonilla, you're recognized.
Does this mean the garage as well?
all enforcement.
Because then it would, what about the people that we were talking about, the parking pass? How would that,
Monthly pass?
yeah, so then like.
Overnight
would we-
parking.
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily overnight parking, it's like the staff that stays till like midnight or 1. We wouldn't have to then change the parking pass verbiage if this were to come into play, correct? You're so clear, thank you.
Can we get just, so let's have the conversation on the record.
As far as the day pass or the rooftop parking at the parking garage or the overnight permit is still required. Obviously, for reasons of, it's offset the Avalon or whatever other developments that occur in the town center to keep it. This is really for expired meter. This is for individuals. You're right, but they still shouldn't need to buy the day pass so that they could park during those hours. So it wouldn't really affect any of the parking permit. It would only affect hourly parking after, or expired meter after 10 p.m. instead of what we're doing now, which is midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. It would be across the board 7 days, 10 p.m.
Just a technical question. The citation revenue you're showing here, is it our portion of the citation, or is
Our
it?
portion.
Okay, I'm just curious, can you show me not for this discussion, but I want to see the fully loaded amount?
The amount that's actually paid, the $36.
Yeah, because again, to the user, it's indistinguishable. So, and ours is what percentage?
66%. We keep
66%.
66.
Okay.
The rest of it goes with Miami-Dade County
Okay.
Clerk of Courts.
Because I was surprised when I saw the graph that the citation revenue was tracked so far below our parking revenue, at some intervals, not all of them.
As far as what we collect,
No, but the gross
yeah,
revenue.
yeah.
The gross revenue is a lot higher.
what you see there is really what we're collecting. though.
I suspect we would see in some portions on some days that there'd be other locations where the citation revenue in its totality would surpass our parking revenue. So that's my speculation. Yeah, no, but it would happen, but that's because you're showing just our portion. So you still fully loaded, it's 33% higher. So it's probably you probably see a greater imbalance. So anyhow, yeah, it's all good. Just wanted to see it. Further questions? Okay, so is the idea, Mr. Manager, we'd implement this as of October 1 for the next budget?
No, we can implement
Do
it
it now.
before.
Yeah, we would do this now.
Yeah, not tonight, but we
Why?
will.
Oh, you,
I don't want to do that.
you don't want to do the parking till 10 every day?
No.
Okay.
Immediately, or do you want to not build it into
Ever?
the next budget, ever?
You guys want to do parking enforcement, no parking enforcement after 10?
Yes.
Across the board?
Yes.
Nah.
Okay, so
Just a clarification, Mayor, on enforcement.
don't believe it.
They'll still be out there and enforcing other aspects, right? Blocking a hydrant, handicap, improper direction. So there'd be other enforcement. It would just be the expired meter that they would not enforce.
And if okay, so I believe we were talking about this. The data shows that when someone goes out to eat for dinner, they pay 2 hours, typically. That's what most people pay. So if you go to dinner in our downtown, again, we're asking people to come to our downtown that we're trying to build, we're trying to bring people here, and we're giving them tickets at 11, 12 o'clock at night, which is ridiculous.
When there's no one parked on the street.
When there's nobody there, where you come to eat in our downtown at 8 o'clock, you pay your 2 hours, you're done, right? You're still paying. They're paying for the parking. What this is avoiding is when someone pays for parking at 8 o'clock, and then at 10:30 or 10:05, they get hit with a ticket because they forgot to renew it. So I think this is something where,
Let me ask you this. Let me ask the board this question. Is this something we want to consider immediately? Because I think the manager was inclined to do that, or prospectively. I want to ask the manager, Mr. Riverall, how are we tracking in this year's budget for this line item in terms of budgeted revenue versus actual revenue?
We're tracking on target.
We're tracking on target. We're not tracking ahead of the forecast.
We may be about 2% higher. But
Okay.
Going into summer is very difficult because our slowest time is
Okay.
the summer.
So
So could we have some reduction
if
in
we
forecasted revenue?
if we adopted this policy The manager went ahead and executed because it's below his procurement threshold. I'm assuming that's why you're doing it, or budgetary threshold.
No, I mean, changing enforcement hours are done administratively.
Okay.
Changing fees would require commission action.
Okay. Okay, so if we change the enforcement hours, can we offset the lost revenue against our budgeted revenues this year? So I don't want to bring the, I don't want to, I want this to be done, I want it to be the last budget, right? We didn't do it because we couldn't get there, right? But even though I'm a zealous proponent with my new commission friend here, right, on this item, I want to make sure that we're not busting the budget in the current fiscal year. So just if you can give me some sense of where we are and whether we could absorb a prospective reduction in revenue for what is 3 months, 4 months of the fiscal year? July, August, September is 3 months, 3.5 months.
Yeah, or if we start tonight, as Commissioner Rodriguez said.
Well, I think it would make sense to start this July 1 when we were trying to invite people to come in here for
Taste of Somi.
Taste of Somi.
Perfect.
There are some other dynamics because we've made other modifications to enforcement, and there's been certainly by practice, and so we've already reduced hours, and so those impacted maybe what we originally forecasted. So this will be on top of that. And, it's something that we can monitor month to month. And I know what your concern is, that we do this and now we got to come back and find a way to balance the budget because, but it goes into our general one big pool, right? And at the end of the day, we can find other means to try and balance what we may lose. So that's why we were saying to implement it now, and we would find other ways to try and balance that if we find ourselves that the projections are not trending on track.
And the idea was in our conversations were to balance this during the budget talks and see where our parking is and see what fair market is and see where we stand with that and, and if finding our break-even point and going from there. So we wouldn't be losing
Let's go left
the
and right
worry.
on this and get everyone's thoughts. Commissioner.
Well, I mean, the numbers here, you know me, $50,000 is a lot of money. But wait, it's my turn. Wait, I know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say. $50,000 is a lot of money. This is our residents' money. If I am not opposed to this because realistically, there's not a lot of people there after 10 o'clock at night, and when they are, they're pissed off when they get to their car. But I think we need to find ways. No, but I think you four, including me, so let's make us 5, need to find ways to try to bridge that gap while we're talking budget. We don't have to talk about it right now. We need to find a way to bridge that gap, either here, somewhere else, stop giving people money, something. I'm okay with this.
That's the idea, to go to budget and no, go to budget and
It's true.
and balance it out.
I hear this all the time from you guys.
We're gonna.
We'll find
What was
it.
the conversation?
We
To
just
balance
need
it
to
out,
figure
right?
it out.
The conversation has been, and I'm sure Mr. River already knows what that number is.
You know what? I'm going to stop
He
talking
knows.
because the more I talk, you make me change my mind. Okay, thank you.
So will I.
Commissioner, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of us going through more of the planning phase through the budget and just make sure that we're doing this the right way. And the other thing is, I always think about,
So is that, let's, so you're a yes? Am I hearing you're a yes? Just want to be clear.
Believe it or not.
You're a yes at doing it immediately. Okay, I'm about to fall out of my chair. Shocked. It's okay. Okay. I think we have a
going
yes
home.
back there as well.
I'm a no to doing immediately.
You're a no to doing it immediately. Okay. So that's what I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
You want to do it immediately.
July 1st. I'm good with the taste of Somi.
July 1. Okay.
That's a good start
July
of a
1. July 1. Commissioner Gaye.
So you're saying that we want to eliminate force, so when do we stop enforcement again?
12.
Well,
On Fridays and Saturdays, it's a 12 midnight.
And then Monday through Thursday?
10 p.m.
So it's only 2 days.
It's our busiest
Our
2 days.
biggest days, I know. But it's when people come visit our city.
I mean, I'm
wanna say
so
something?
tired of manipulating these numbers already. Like, it's nothing, like you guys, we've done all these manipulations before you, Commissioner Rodriguez. We've done so many different manipulations. And we don't
Manipulations.
understand what the impacts are. I don't hear people complain about anymore about tickets anymore.
What
Oh.
if you advertised that you're not going to bill anybody for parking after 10 o'clock? Do you think they might stay in the bars a little longer? Do you think they might want to come downtown maybe at 9 o'clock and stay for longer? Do you think then that maybe the merchants would earn more money and have to pay more taxes because they had more profit?
Thank you for the comment. So Commissioner Guy, you're no on doing it immediately.
No, man, I'm done. Like, we've done so much and nothing moves the needle. Like, we just need to the big plan and just let it go. That's my opinion. We've already done so many changes with this stuff. I don't think it moves the needle.
I'm sorry, moves the needle on what?
Our reputation in the area.
Yeah.
I don't think it moves the needle.
I think it will.
We've already done this before. But whatever, that's my vote.
Do we have to vote on it? Do we vote? Like,
No, he can choose to do it. I mean, I think he would like our direction. I would like it to be more unanimous than just a 3-2 vote. I mean, my thought was we were going to do this prospectively, but I don't want to miss the opportunity. So, I mean, I'm honestly shocked that Commissioner Bonich is on board with this. So
I knew.
I'll say yes, just to kind of
get this
help us all along here. So, Mr. Manager, I think if you want formal action, we're happy to take it, or?
No, I mean, if there's a general consensus, majority, and, that's.
I would like to understand what the impact is financially, if you can get us a report as soon as the month closes for July, because I just want to make sure we're gonna bust the line item, okay? I don't think we will, because it's a slow month historically anyways, so I would imagine our best revenue months are behind us already fiscally, so anyhow, those are my thoughts. Okay. Okay. Just a couple things in commission reports, I'll be quick. I just want to share on Manor Lane, I've spoken to council, Mr. Ruscio, about whether we want to present an offer. I want to get a sense from, there is a willingness to hear an offer on the part of the developer for us to purchase the lot. I don't know if we want to give the manager, I believe they've procured a preliminary evaluation. I want to get a sense of whether the board wants to actually tender an offer to the developer. I'd prefer to do that before we get close to a rehearing of their application. I don't want to be put in a position where it's perceived that we're trying to perceive an extraction from them. So I don't know if the board has wanted to move forward. We certainly heard a lot from the neighbors about them wanting to see us acquire the green space.
Which way are we going?
Which way do you
Let's go left to right since we weren't to left the last time.
Okay. I don't have a problem with having that conversation. I think that if we're going to be kind of turning our eyes more towards that we need to then look at other neighborhoods, not just the people that scream the loudest. Because
Correct.
guess what? My neighborhood doesn't scream at all. So does that mean we don't want green space? That kind of conversation, it's the same as the garbage trash thing.
Correct. No, I think it's a fair point, and I think that's part of the purpose of certainly the conversations I've had with our director for parks and the consultant, the master plan is identifying some other opportunities. So I'll concur with that statement. Yes, sir.
And I would just want to make sure we're getting a good deal with it. I mean, I know it's right up against the underline. It might be hard to get comparable properties, but yeah, that's my biggest concern is that if we could purchase a property in or around it or somewhere else that was a better deal, I'd rather do that.
So, I mean, roughly the valuation, I think that came back was $75 a foot per our informal, that was on the high end, right? So, it didn't strike me as outrageous, but, I don't know. It's in the north of $1 million range. So I think roughly just under 1.2 when you apply that metric to it. So I think if we're going to tender an offer, it's got to be with the understanding that, the expectation we'll probably have to borrow. Mr. Manager, I don't know if you've done the analysis. If we're going to basically purchase it, I don't know that we want to go into reserves or our general fund to take down the property. So we probably want to structure a borrowing so we can limit it to just our carrying costs until we figure out how we're going to improve and bring that into the portfolio. Do you want to say anything about that?
No, that's correct. If the reserves is not a route, then certainly we would borrow to make that purchase. And yeah, 75 was a ceiling from a estimate standpoint. Certainly, opportunity for something lower than that, but 75 was a ceiling.
Thoughts?
I'm definitely open to, seeing, giving an offer and seeing. Other options were, during the Underline event, I talked to Meg about that property and see, because they're looking for properties. So maybe the Underline would be interested in buying it, because they're actively looking for properties right now. So maybe we don't have to absorb it, but maybe the Underline can.
Yeah, I'm shocked to hear that, because since they're asking us for
And-
for O&M money.
Yeah, and, for maintenance, but they're still acquiring property.
Okay.
And Lisa, yes, we're neighbors, and I am screaming loud. I think the manager's tired of hearing me talk about the Girl Scout property, and when are we gonna start clearing that out?
Yeah.
So,
I saw the director for Tropical Girl Scouts at the Chamber event last week, and she committed she's going to get us comments to the lease here very shortly. So hopefully that'll happen soon.
hopefully.
Yes, sir.
Look, I think the opportunity buy for the city is a great opportunity. We should definitely look into it. I will say that we do have a parks study that we're doing now. Do we need green space in the area? I'm sure we do. I think we need to be a little bit more plan-oriented to make sure we do these things correctly sometimes. But having the opportunity to buy that now, which doesn't come out often, and it solves a lot of problems, it's something that we should definitely look into.
Okay. So do we want to direct the manager to put together an offer and present it? Again, I just think in good faith, if we're going to go down this route, I want to have a sense that 4 of us are going to agree to a companion borrowing, because otherwise there's no point in making an offer. I'm certainly not going to vote to take the money out of cash in our reserves in one shot. I prefer not to see all that money go out the door. I think we can probably get debt at very reasonable terms. So do we want to have the manager brief us on that, kind of get our individual sign off, give us a sense of what the plan would be from a finance perspective, carry, terms, and then kind of bless it out the door?
And can we then, I know that Alfredo has shown us our debt and when it's coming, like when it's coming off the books, so that we also have a better idea, like, okay, we would be doing this debt will be coming off the books here and
Yeah,
here.
1026 is our debt retirement date.
So essentially, we'd be,
Just
if
transferring.
we did that, we'd be transferring.
Yeah, so I think it
taking
would
the
be helpful to understand, what's our debt service on, what's our annual debt service on the tranche that we're retiring in October of '26? Okay, so basically, I would guess, right, if we took a more aggressive acquisition price than the one we've been talking about,
That's what I was saying.
you're at a quarter of that total debt service. So you're looking at bridging 25% of that capacity between now and October 1 of '26, correct? Okay.
I would agree with finding out what the debt service, what the whole, and then giving a little better offer. I mean, let's not start high, start low and. work our
Again, I
way up.
just, they're,
They can hear you.
yeah.
I've never been told I talk low.
No, you're like, the strategy should be blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Person, you're not listening,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Sir?
Mayor, not to decide today, but just thinking about it, because I think it'll be related at some point, is certainly managing expectations of, if it were to be green space, what type of use would be on that property, because hearing a range of comments of uses, I don't know that everybody would be aligned with a certain activation of that space. So well, it was suggested by one neighbor that could be one of the options. I'm not sure that would be met with, acceptance by others. So it's a big investment. That may be a strategic acquisition.
That is an
but-
easy neighborhood to design a park in. I think Mayor, our former mayor can attest to that. It's our parks director can attest to the very smooth process that was the creation of Bob Walsh Park. So that's sarcasm in case anybody doesn't know. So I would imagine, I'd say that's an issue we kind of leave to another day, and we just make a decision whether we want to add it into the inventory in the short term, because we have the opportunity. So, Mr. Manager, if you can kind of lay out some terms, confirm what the financing would look like, if we can have individual conversations, and if you get a sense that 4 of us are willing to move forward, I'd be inclined to at least try to get an offer across either side and see what they come back with. Okay. Lastly, obviously we lost. Sorry, yes, ma'am. Oh, no, I think I want to say something. So we had the unfortunate news that former vice mayor passed away recently and was buried today. And so I wanted to get a sense of the commission whether we wanted to do something to, in memory of his service. I had inquired with him whether the portion of his street in front of his home is designated in honor of anyone. It apparently is not. Would we like to consider a resolution to possibly designate that portion of 64th Street in his honor? I thought it might be a fitting tribute, so,
Right now, we're looking, just so that you guys know,
yeah.
what, for Gail, exactly, because her street in front of her house has somebody else's name on it, so we're looking at a section of 64th Street.
Got it.
So we want to make sure he doesn't live in the same section as her, because then we'll run into the same problem.
West of 68th Avenue, he does? Okay, so, Mr. Manager, if you can, maybe for the July or August agenda, kind of bring forward an item for, to clarify the designation for Gale, and maybe a section that would be appropriate to name for Vice Mayor Young as well.
Certainly. On the Gale one, as I understand it, has a prior designation of a name and 63rd Court. So obviously, from an option standpoint, we can come back with some ideas if naming of the street is the option, the preferred option. I mean, we can be other things that we would name as well, and/or I believe her house was on a corner.
Yeah.
So although she would not face the avenue from a naming standpoint, it could be maybe 64th Street for that segment, potentially, and then it wouldn't conflict with the already named avenue, if you will. I forget the avenue. So that could be an option, or
Okay,
I believe, as for Mr. Young, is a little bit further west.
he's a little bit further west, I think.
Yeah, and which is
6825, I think was his
Yeah.
home address.
which
It's
is
cl-
kind of
it's
like
by-
the
It's the section closest to the Ludlam Trail. Yeah.
last block and a half of the city.
Yeah. So anyhow, if you could, just want to make sure, I think to the commissioner's point, let's make sure we reconcile that potential conflict. But if you can bring forward a recommendation for a segment that we can name as proximate to his home as possible, I think that would be appropriate. Okay. With that, any other commission reports, discussion, or comments? Yes,
I
ma'am.
live on 64th Place off of Miller.
Off of Miller.
Just remember that.
Okay. We'll do it while you're alive. Okay, seeing no further business before the commission, we stand adjourned. Have a good evening. Take it then. Huh?